urgent case and will have gained great serenity in your life. The advantages of placing visual and auditory reflexes under the control of psychic power. By placing the centers of visual and auditory reflexes under the control of psychic power, you will be able to be detached in competitive or dangerous situations and will economize an enormous amount of energy on a daily basis. You will acquire a gait that will be noticed through economy of movement. You will not be affected by a suddenly coming ball, a threatening individual, an unexpected difficulty when doing manual labor, or a difficult musical passage. You will not move your head or arms haphazardly when you speak. On the contrary, you will keep your head still when you do not need to move it, and your arms and legs in a resting position, except when you need to use them. Instead of following a moving object with your body, follow it with your eyes and keep your legs and hands still. You will learn to eliminate sudden reactions to everything you see or hear and ignore the unimportant ones. Cross a room or street with measured, gently cadenced steps and reach goal elegantly. It is little things like these that make an impression on people. By watching and listening intensely and using psychic power control over visual and auditory reflexes, you will minimize energy dissipation and allow the mind to function in the best way while you are in action. If you add to this the control of psychic power by developing your unconscious personality, even just a little, your poise will become so irresistible that you will dominate dangerous animals and men with just a glance. You will also retain boundless energy because the nerves preserve well-balanced functions and relaxed muscles to the body. Lesson 10. How to place the primitive and great visual center under the control of psychic power. The primitive sight center and the great visual center are the seventh important part of the primitive self. The primitive visual center is the outer geniculate body on each half of the brain. It comprises a portion of the largest and newest part of the thalamus. The oldest part, however, is the sensation recording center. The new part is larger in humans than in other beings because its different portions contain more nerve passages leading to the higher centers of the conscious mind, the sense of touch or skin centers, and the visual and auditory sense centers. The great visual center occupies a large part of the cortex at the back of the brain. Develop first the primitive sight center and then the great visual center. The functions of the primitive center of view. In all vertebrates, optical messages are sent from the retina to a region of the brain. Is the primitive visual center. In the mouse, cat, dog, and other mammals, the external geniculate body serves as the second great visual center. These animals can still perceive imperfectly after ablation of the great visual center of the mind. In the frog, all nerves discharge their messages from the retina into the optic lobes, which are the equivalent of the human upper colliculi. From the optic lobes, orders are sent directly to the frog's various muscles. The animal acts spontaneously according to the visual images it receives from the retina without going through the mind. The ablation of the visual region of the conscious mind thus leaves the frog's primitive self-consciousness in full possession of sight. This is why the primitive self-consciousness completely determines the animal's reaction to the visual images that the retina sends to the brain. In slightly more developed animals, some nerve fiber carries the messages, thus linking the primitive self to the conscious mind. This allows the conscious mind to control to a certain extent the animal's muscular activities. Nevertheless, their primitive self still holds most of the control over muscle reflexes. The higher one rises on the biogenetic ladder, the more the great visual center gains ascendancy, and the number of nerves sending orders from the primitive self-consciousness to the mind progressively increases, while the number of nerves sending orders from the self-consciousness to the muscles progressively decreases. The dog, for example, after ablation of the conscious mind, can still discern different intensities of light, but cannot distinguish shapes and see obstacles in its path. In humans, visual images sent from the retina to the external geniculate body can only stimulate orders to the brain and body through the conscious mind. Ablation of the great center of the conscious mind leaves him completely blind because no images from the retina can stimulate him anymore. His primitive visual center cannot replace the large visual center, as is the case in the dog and other less developed animals. How to awaken the center of primitive sight. It is evident that if you awaken the primitive sight center, you will automatically possess two important centers instead of one. You will then have a visual power that you have never had. You will be able to read much faster, whatever speed reading system you employ, because you will see with 4 eyes instead of 2. When you now look at a word on a page, you do so with your conscious mind. The primitive sight center, when awakened, will look at the characters first automatically and instantly increase the amount of visual material the retina photographs at the same time. Exercise 1. How to study a subject faster and not leave out any details. By reading in a hurry, you can only absorb the general outline of a book. By reading classic textbooks and other books that require in-depth study, even in a hurry, you cannot leave out the details because they are the real substance of the subject. The detailed subject matter is really the most important part for a practical study. General matter simply gets you an overall idea, and this exercise teaches you how to use the primitive center of view to help you study faster without leaving out the details. Open an indigestible book in the middle to be sure that you will not easily understand it. Choose any paragraph and read it in the following way. Take a look at the word imprinted in the first half of the line. Read it and quickly pick out the meaning of the words that immediately precede and follow it. Then choose a word imprinted in the second half of the line and do the same thing again. This is the means to grasp the entire meaning of the line without leaving out the details. Do this slowly at first to develop the center of primitive sight. Let the eyes see clearly and perfectly on all sides. Then do it faster and faster. Finally, do it for the whole page. Your aptitude for reading and understanding a difficult subject will increase to a great extent. Now you will develop the great visual center and increase your visual powers even more. The important parts of the great visual center and how they work for you. The great visual center occupies the largest part of the cortex at the back of the brain. There are 2 divisions that physiologists call the visual sensory region and the visual psychic region. For simplicity, we will call them the visual image receiving region and the command distribution region. 1 division. The visual image receiving region of the great visual center receives visual images from the retina in the form of nerve electricity after they have passed 2 nerve junctions. They convey to it impressions of colors, shapes, motion, light, and transparency that have been photographed by the retina. These different impressions are recognized and determined by the conscious mind. To come to recognize and identify them, you need the help of the command distribution region of the great visual center. 2 division. The order distribution regions of the great visual center surrounds the largest part of the visual image receiving region. It is responsible for developing in detail the images it receives from the image receiving region and integrating them to past experiences. This process leads not only to recognize, but also to identify all that you can see. The region of order distribution also determines the position of the objects you observe in space. It forces your eyes to move to arrive at these results by ordering your eye muscles to adjust the direction of your gaze. Just as the reflex center of vision, it keeps your eyes fixed on an object when you turn your head in an opposite direction. How to develop the visual center by placing it under the control of psychic power. 1. By increasing the faculty of recognizing, determining, and identifying colors and shapes, you will acquire a truly artistic eye or improve it if you already possess it. You will appreciate the arts, nature, and fashion. Also in business, you will be better able to interest the public and individual contacts. In any occupation worthy of the name, you will need an excellent understanding of color effectiveness, and you will need to form it if you want to get to the top quickly. This applies not only to the artist or the tailor, but also to the executive, the dentist, the lawyer, the priest, the inventor, the merchant, and the soldier. 2. By knowing how to better recognize, determine, and identify movement, you will be able to become excellent in specialties and sports that demand movement skills. 3. The same thing applies to light and transparency. Improving this faculty will enable you to see more deeply through the light and the dark. The benefits you will gain are too numerous to list. Exercise 1. How to make a mental picture of people and objects that you have seen for only a few moments. Take a quick look at a person, car, or object in the street. Then look away and quickly describe what you saw in detail from head to toe. Verify and check to what extent your image is accurate. This aptitude for reproducing exactly what you saw at first glance is invaluable to you in business, social, and artistic life. Exercise 2. Take a look at a photograph of an athlete performing a specialty in which you would like to triumph. Look away and describe what you saw. Check the accuracy of your description. What does not match the photograph is generally the error that haunts you in that activity. This is the great use you can make of the great visual center when you place it under the control of psychic power. How to achieve a more penetrating view. Exercise 1. Observe a bird flying at a distance in the clear sky and try to see it motionless, even after it has disappeared. Since, at a distance, the bird appears smaller and smaller, send a flare command of psychic power to the eyes and force them to continue seeing the bird as if it were not becoming smaller at all. Force the eye muscles to sufficiently change the shape of the lens so that they can see even farther than before. Even after the bird has disappeared from sight in the sky, it is still there flying. If your eyes had a longer focus, or if you used binoculars, you could still see it. So keep looking at the spot where the bird disappeared, and imagine that you still see it flying. By doing so, you provide the sensation recording center with the idea that you wish to awaken its ancient use. Exercise 2. When you spot a sign that is too far away to read, try to decipher it as in Exercise 1. Exercise 3. Try to distinguish windows on houses so far apart that you can barely glimpse them, doing exactly as in Exercise 1. Exercise 4. Try to read the exact time on distant clocks, as you did in Exercise 1. Exercise 5. Restart Exercises 1 and 2, looking through the fog. Exercise 6. Try to define the color of a person's eyes on the sidewalk before you are close enough to determine it exactly. Do this as you did in Exercise 1. Exercise 7. Now hold a page printed in small print about 30 centimeters in front of your eyes. Bring it closer and closer to your eyes so that the characters appear double. Now look while staring at a single word. With simple psychic power, force your eyes to stop seeing double and to see the word clearly again. In doing so, you will feel the brain become hard as steel, but it is but the muscles of the eyes that are subjected to a Herculean effort. Repeat the experiment with even smaller characters. Exercise 8. How to increase visual power by psychic power. Place two objects on the other side of the room, facing each other. Bring them closer and closer together until the one in front hides the ones behind. Then try to see with your imagination what is behind. Abstract. In addition to awakening the primitive vision center, you considerably improve vision. In addition, by improving your eyesight, you can advance in your profession. You will thus increase your earnings and at the same time your joy in life. How the primitive sight center and the great visual center see for you. Colors do not really exist, they exist only in the conscious mind. The external world produces them through vibrations in the ether of different wavelengths. The word color actually means sensation and refers to a particular wavelength or combination of wavelengths of a visible ether vibration. When ether vibrations of a wavelength of about 0.00079 millimeters strike the retina, they create nerve electricity that stimulates the mind to interpret them as red. The same thing applies to all other wavelengths. Each one produces a specific result in the conscious mind. By mixing two or more colors, other color sensations can be produced in your mind. To summarize, no color image is formed on the retina through what it photographs. The color you perceive is only an interpretation of the conscious mind of what you see. The Young-Helmich theory is the best-known theory on color vision. It places the analysis of color in the retina. Then the analysis is sent by retinal action currents to the primitive vision center. There, the different types of nerve electricity from the different vibrations of the ether are isolated and are then connected to the great visual center and interpreted in the conscious mind into different colors. How to rejuvenate the eyes daily. When nerve electricity is branched, it is called the light effect. When it is interrupted, it is called the off effect. The nerve electricity that arises in the optic nerve when it is interrupted has confused physiologists because no other nerve in the body reacts in this way. With all other nerves, the nerve electricity disappears immediately when it is interrupted or when the stimulus causing it ceases. Instead, with the optic nerve, the nerve electricity becomes even stronger. The explanation for this phenomenon now seems clear even to physiologists. When nerve electricity is interrupted in the optic nerve, this means that the retina does not perceive any light, only darkness, and is therefore no longer stimulated to create retinal action currents. Nevertheless, darkness, in the life of an animal, is no less important than the perception of light. A shadow or dark effect in the visual field could indicate food or the approach of the enemy. Thus, darkness is not the time for the animal to rest or sleep. It adapts accordingly to black by regenerating visual purple, and this increases retinal irritability a millionfold. A weak light that had previously made no impression on the animal's retina will now trigger vigorous retinal action currents. The animal has become much more vigilant than before. This fact is of paramount importance because it brings out the advantage of closing the eyes and letting them rest several times a day. This gives the retina a chance to increase its sensitivity and the strength of its nerve electricity when the eyes are opened again, allowing them to see better. Evidently, it is preferable to lie on the back a few minutes at a time and to cover the eyes with something black so that light can hardly reach them, and thus the retina can recharge its nerve electricity in the shortest time possible. Wearing smoked goggles when the sun is too strong or even in artificial light will gradually do the same thing to your eyes. Lecture 11. How to place the primitive hearing center under the control of psychic power. What the primitive hearing center can do for you. The primitive hearing center is the eighth important part of the primitive self-consciousness. It consists of the middle geniculate body on each half of the brain. The main function of primitive hearing is spatial differentiation. Spatial differentiation is the faculty of perceiving differences and distinctions in space according to frequencies of sound. The bot, in this regard, is phenomenally gifted. The human ear is most sensitive to sounds varying between 2,000 and 5,000 cycles per second, that is, up to the highest 2 octaves of the plane. The maximum sensitivity for tones is 2,700 cycles per second, but the bot can pick up frequencies of 98,000 cycles per second. By means of the supersonic cries it emits and the reception of echoes of these sounds on objects it encounters during flight, the bot is guided and is able to avoid collisions. It possesses a natural radar station. If you wanted to hear such high frequencies, you would have to develop the primitive hearing center to a very high degree. Some succeed by developing the electricity of the cochlea. The electricity of the auger. The cochlea is a tubular, spiral-shaped structure in the inner ear. It contains the microscopic hair cells and other structures of the cochlea. When a sound reaches the hair cells, it sets them into vibration. As a result, energy is transformed in the auditory nerve ends surrounding the hair cells into nerve electricity. The nerve electricity passes through 2 nerve junctions on the way to the hearing reflex center, and another to go to the primitive hearing center, and yet another to go to the great auditory center. Physiologists have discovered with amazement that another inexplicable current is produced along the auditory nerve, independent of the current of nerve electricity. This fact was discovered by doing experiments on an animal from which the brain, except the cerebellum and the lower projections of the temporal lobe, had been removed. They found that words and sounds were faithfully reproduced when electrodes were placed on the auditory nerve and connected to a telephone receiver or speaker. They also discovered two distinctly different components in the nerve electricity of the auditory center. 1. The real auditory nerve electricity that came from the sound energy reaching the hair cells in the cochlea was transformed into nerve electricity. But it was the second component that made them astonished. 2. It consisted of a new unsuspected and unexplained electricity that was generated by the same sound waves on other non-nerve structures within the cochlea. Physiologists called it electricity of the cochlea. The mystery increased because no apparent function was identified in the electricity of the cochlea. Physiologists consequently accepted it as an accidental occurrence of auditory function. But in nature, nothing is accidental, and there is always an explanation for every phenomenon. In truth, often the explanation is a combination of several explanations. Moreover, hearing can be lost if the electricity of the cochlea is suppressed. Therefore, the electricity of the cochlea certainly contributes in an important way to the functioning of hearing. The mysterious power of cochlea electricity. No function has yet been discovered for the larger part of the lobe. It is neither the conscious nor subconscious mind, and is necessarily some other mind in relation to psychic power, since it cannot be something that man knows. Moreover, there is much evidence in favor of this conception. The electricity of the cochlea differs in many respects from true nerve electricity, except that it exerts its influence on the body from the brain, instead of from the psychic power center in the forehead and temporal region. This is why the great auditory center has a special psychic power center. The 10 differences between cochlea electricity and auditory electricity. 1. In general anesthesia, sleep, hypnotic sleep, or psychic trance, true nerve electricity is abolished. But the electricity of the cochlea remains. It is therefore the only electricity present in you when you are unconscious. 2. When the cochlea is cooled, the true auditory electricity decreases, but that of the cochlea does not. It is therefore natural for it to behave independently of true auditory nerve electricity. 3. If the blood supply to the brain is suppressed, true auditory electricity and cochlea electricity are abolished at the same time, which indicates that the electricity of the cochlea is controlled by the brain, because the brain tissue ceases to function when oxygen is suppressed. 4. Immediately after death, true auditory electricity disappears long before cochlea electricity. Evidently, the electricity of the cochlea is not under the control of the conscious or subconscious mind, otherwise it would disappear immediately after death. Only something that is beyond the conscious and subconscious mind can exist after death, something like the primitive self-consciousness. 5. Cochlea electricity is produced much earlier than true auditory electricity when sound waves reach it. Cochlea electricity has a much shorter latent period, which indicates that the producer of cochlea electricity is better prepared to create it because its aptitude does not disappear, even when you are under general anesthesia or trance. And its producer must be the subconscious mind, but also the primitive self-consciousness, because these are the two minds that never sleep. 6. True auditory nerve electricity can be recorded in you only by the auditory nerve or by some other part of the auditory pathway, such as the hearing reflex center, the primitive hearing center, and the great auditory center. But electricity from the cochlea can be recorded anywhere in the inner ear or skull, provided the amplification is adequate. The reason lies in the fact that the power emanating from the lobe is not confined to the auditory nerve, as is the case with true auditory electricity. It may also be a part of the structures of the primitive self, and is consequently branched through the whole brain and can be registered anywhere in the skull. 7. Cochlea electricity has much more tendency to spread through body tissues than true auditory nerve electricity. 8. True auditory electricity synchronizes with sound waves up to a maximum of 3,000 cycles per second. Cochlea electricity synchronizes with sound waves up to 20,000 cycles per second. This fact proves that the electricity of the cochlea is under a certain power of mind that is considerably stronger than the conscious mind. 9. True auditory nervous electricity can be created by addition. That is, it will be produced even if the waves of sound reaching the cochlea are too weak, but repeated a certain number of times. However, this is not the case with cochlea energy, because it is produced when the initial sound wave reaching the cochlea is strong enough to create it all in a row. It would require a powerful command of psychic power to be produced in any other way. 10. Cochlea electricity consists of piezoelectric currents, such as those generated by pressure on a quartz crystal. These currents are monstrously intense, which is no doubt why many hysterics are extraordinarily sensitive to all sounds. Noises disturb them to the point of causing them pain. Their hearing can become so fine that they can distinguish whispered sounds through many closed doors. Some experiences have shown that their perception of sound can be 16 times greater than that of a normal person. Hysterics fantastically increase their auditory acuity not by conscious or subconscious mind, but by the electricity of the cochlea, increased by the orders of the psychic power of the terrified mind. The electricity of the cochlea is astronomically more penetrating than any other electricity, and through it one can develop and acquire incredible hyperacuity. The benefits of controlling psychic power over cochlea electricity. Even if you place 1% of the cochlea electricity under the control of psychic power, you will reap incredible benefits in daily life. Here is one resulting from the acquired hyperacuity. 1. Hearing will become finer. Since 50% of people are to be considered to have some deafness, anything that can improve hearing by natural methods is more than appreciable. 2. This will increase your success in society, because you will be more variant in syllabic inflections when hearing will be sharper and elocution more effective. Your popularity will increase because you will be more pleasant, sweeter, more caressing, and more intimate. 3. This will greatly increase the aptitude for following music, singing, and pleasant conversations. 4. You will hear conversations from afar and learn more about humanity without making any effort. You will hear more easily those who speak softly. Generally shy and fearful people speak softly and are difficult to understand. If you understand them more than others, you will make friends with them and be able to help and advise them. 5. In many occupations, a fine ear is indispensable, and an economizer of energy. The nurse and the doctor must listen to the pulse of the sick. The speaker must perceive the smallest noises of disagreement among his hearers. The actor the slightest noises among the spectators. The salesman the smallest hesitation in his customer's voice. 6. Since it is possible to record the electricity of the cochlea in any part of the skull, this could help those with deafness resulting from bone transmission. 7. When there is danger, when you are out late at night, or there is a wanderer in the house, or you are serving in the military in a wooded region, or you are on sentry duty, or you are on night watch, hyperacuity can save your life, you and others. The 3 steps to acquiring hyperacuity. To acquire hyperacuity, you must 1. Increase the auditory range of the primitive hearing center. It varies between 500 and 8,000 cycles per second, and you must try to increase it to 20,000 or more, up to the synchronization frequency of the cochlea's electricity. This will increase the hearing acuity by 4 times. 2. Increase cochlea electricity by listening to sounds more zealously so that 3. More cilia cells are stimulated and more intensely. You carry out these 3 stages through the control of the psychic auditory power of the electricity of the cochlea, as you will learn in the next chapter. In doing so, you automatically intensify the functions of the primitive hearing center, and thus have 4 ears instead of 2. How to develop cochlea electricity under the control of auditory psychic power. 1. Since cochlea electricity occurs even when you are under general anesthesia, asleep, or in a hypnotic trance, This means that it can best be controlled for auditory exercise by parasympathetic nerves. 2. Since cochlear electricity is produced long before true auditory electricity when sound waves reach the ear, it can be well controlled if the exercise is short enough not to sensitively stimulate auditory nerve electricity. 3. Since the electricity of the cochlea can be recorded anywhere else in the skull, as long as the amplification is adequate, you will gain advantages if you perform the exercise with cotton in the ears. 4. Since the electricity of the cochlea can synchronize with sound waves up to 20,000 cycles per second, even though the primitive hearing center has an auditory range of only 8,000 cycles per second, it is preferable to exercise your hearing with sounds that it can barely discern when you have no cotton in your ears. The electricity of the cochlea can then rely on no other help than that of the primitive hearing center. 5. Since cochlea electricity does not increase by addition, but it is the real auditory nerve electricity that does it, do not do exercises too quickly, one after the other, because this would produce auditory electricity and unintentionally help the cochlea electricity. Summary. Follow carefully the 5 rules we give you when doing the exercises to develop and place the electricity of the cochlea under the control of psychic power. 1. Rule. Sit comfortably in your room and use the psychic arc to stimulate parasympathetic nerves. 2. Rule. Do not do each exercise for more than 2 seconds. 3. Rule. Curate your ears with large cotton swabs. 4. Rule. Do the exercises with sounds you can barely hear when you don't have cotton in your ears. 5. Rule. Count near 7 seconds before starting one exercise again or doing another. Exercises to develop the electricity of the cochlea and bring it under the control of auditory psychic power. Exercise 1. Sit comfortably in your room with cotton in your ears. Listen to something you heard very faintly before, like the tick-tick of a clock, and force your ears to hear it with the same intensity as before. Exercise 2. Set the clock farther away and start exercise 1 again. Exercise 3. Do exercise 1 again by placing the clock farther and farther away. Exercise 4. Start exercises 1, 2, 3 again with another object or noise, so that you don't get used to the tick-tock of the clock. In these 4 exercises, do not forget to apply the rules from the previous chapter. Exercise 5. How to place the electricity of the cochlea under the control of auditory psychic power. Do exercise 1 again. After doing this for a second, fire a rocket command of the psychic power at the auditory nerve, ordering it to listen with greater intensity. The amount of electricity in the cochlea will increase quite a bit immediately. Immediately afterwards, hold your breath, close your eyes, and visualize the pulse of the clock pounding through the skull to the auditory nerve. A second later, lie down completely so that the true auditory nerve electricity is not sufficiently stimulated to help the cochlea electricity. Exercise 6. Wait 10 seconds, then start exercise 2 again. This time, send a rocket command of auditory psychic power, even stronger to the auditory nerve. You need it to hear as well as in exercise 5. Exercise 7. Wait 10 seconds, then start exercise 3 again. Send a rocket command of auditory psychic power so strong so that the whole body will go into tension while you remain completely relaxed by means of the psychic arc. The electricity of the cochlea develops more rapidly when the parasympathetic nerves are under control. Exercise 8. Start again with exercise 4. Performing all these exercises will improve your hearing tremendously. Abstract. As with the eyes, these exercises improve hearing. If your hearing is normal or above normal, you will discover new universes. In business as in pleasure activities, a fine ear is of utmost importance. Lesson 12. How to use the self-aware healer to bring others under your psychic power. The daily use of the self-aware healer. Making a person comfortable is perhaps the most effective means of bringing them under the control of your psychic power. How are you doing today? Looking good. How is your wife or husband or son? You look tired today. Are you not feeling well? These pleasantries and many others indicate that people have always shown interest in the health of others as well as their own. And this is for the simple reason that at one time or another everyone gets sick. Most people chronically suffer from headaches, stomach ailments, liver ailments, heart ailments, sinusitis, melancholy, and other limited ills that don't force them to bed. Many individuals feel unwell, and your attitude to help them feel better when you meet them is a truly comforting secret power. You can, if you wish, perfect this attitude. Even among the apostles there were some gifted to perform certain miracles, and others to perform different ones. Many among them were gifted to heal psychically, others were not. Everyone possesses some dispositions in this regard, or possesses at least all they need to develop them for the control of psychic power over others in daily life. The 4 points of the self-aware healer. If your dog, your child, or a beloved being is hurt or sick, you feel that you could relieve him or her from pain or illness. As a child, when we get hurt, we look for mother and her caresses. Perhaps she has no healing talent with anyone other than her child. Instinctively, she employs the healing self with her son, caresses the wounds and orders them to heal. You have absolute confidence in her power to heal. Without such conditions, psychic healing is impossible. Similarly, you and the other person must reach a certain degree of harmony in your relationships before the self-conscious healer can act. Thereafter, take more steps, and you will have the other person under the control of psychic power. The 4 steps for the healing self-conscious are: 1. First, establish relationships with the other person. 2. Project infrared beams onto it by means of brain antennae. 3. Transmit your body's surplus of electrons to him with your hands. 4. Projecting visualized forms of healthy organs by means of brain antennae. These 4 points will now be explained, and we will teach you how to use them. Point 1. Treatment of the torso is the easiest means of establishing relationships with the other person. Most of his or her ills, including headaches, originate in one of the parts of the torso, such as the stomach, heart, lungs, liver, intestines, colon, rectum, kidneys, bladder, and uterus. If you meet John or Joan, immediately project the torso treatment to him, even before you say a word. Exercise. How to quickly establish mutual relationships with others. You meet McKelly on the street, in the office, or at a meeting. Immediately visualize her body from head to thighs as she secretes acetylcholine at each nerve junction. Or visualize only his torso and think at the same time of something you wish to eat. Hold this vision for 2 seconds. This mental image will be immediately telepathized in Michael's mind. It will be the image of a pain-free torso, because the acetylcholine emitted by the nerves gives a sense of pleasure and not pain. Michelle's conscious mind will then ignore all the pain sensations it receives from the sensation recording center that originate in the torso, or were caused by it reflexively, such as a headache of stomach origin. So, Michael feels better immediately and remains eager to meet you again. You have thus created a new relationship very soon. Point 2. Next time, start conversations with him. If he already feels well, you will no longer be able to influence him with the torso treatment. The healing self is most effective on the person who is not feeling well. If he is ill or reveals his real or imagined affliction to you, send him by means of the cerebral antennas, a burst of infrared rays supported by an extraordinary force of photons. Point 3. If Michael is bedridden and you visit him, fill him with electrons by applying your hands to him with light touches. Do not look at your hands as if they were tentacles. Imagine them made only for caresses. Exercise 1. How to subdue the favorite animal with light touch. Use light touch first with the favorite animal we will call Prissy. If the touch is brutal, Prissy will try to avoid it. If the touch is gentle enough, Prissy will rub against you to be petted again. If you stroke it lightly continuously, it will fall into a kind of semi-hypnotic state. If it is a cat, it will half close its eyes and purr. The dog wags its tail and licks your hands. Prissy will prefer to be stroked on the back, neck, and belly. When you touch sick, Michele, make use only of your fingertips. They will more easily transmit your body's surplus of electrons and infrared radiation to him. Pretend you are feeling Michel's pulse, and this will enable you to touch him only with your fingertips and transmit the power of the healing self to him. Since the electric current goes from negative to positive, the electrons will pass from you being healthy, negatively charged, to sick Michael, positively charged. Point 4. If Michael is not in bed, you will have little chance to practice light touch on him. Thus, when he has confided to you what ails him, put into practice on him the visualized healed organ. With it you will locate the diseased organ and arrange a healthy organ in its place. This will have a miraculous effect on Michael. It is the quickest way to draw his attention away from the organ that troubles him and will make him think of nothing but you as a valuable help. How to create the visualized healed organ. You will certainly have seen the organs of an animal's body at the butcher's. You will have seen the liver, stomach, heart, kidney, and perhaps the lungs. The intestines, colon, and rectum are the extension of the stomach and make up the digestive tract. You therefore have an idea of how these visceral organs are arranged within the torso. The lungs are in the chest slightly to the left of the midline. The liver is in the right side below the lower ribs. The stomach is below the lower tip of the sternum. The intestines are between the stomach and the umbilicus. The colon is like an inverted U in the belly. The rectum is in the posterior groove. Common organic diseases have their origin in these visceral organs. Consequently, it is these that one must learn to visualize as healed organs. Exercise 1. Look fixedly into the void and visualize the organs mentioned one by one. If you don't remember them, go to a butcher's shop and look at them again. Exercise 2. Look fixedly at your image in a mirror, directing your gaze to those parts of the body where each visualized organ is more or less located. Imagine these parts in perfect health. Note: do not forget to reverse the angles of your body when you look at your image in front of the mirror, as you do when you look at another person when you meet him or her. Exercise 3. Now visualize each visceral organ in operation. The heart receiving blood from one valve and pouring it out of another. The liver producing red blood cells to enrich the blood. The lungs filling with air and pumping oxygen into the blood. The kidneys filtering the blood. The bladder containing clear urine. The rectum as a soft tube by which solid debris is pushed out. Exercise 4. Close and open your eyes. Look this time at the image in the mirror as if it were Michael's. Imagine a healthy red liver floating in the air. Thanks to a rocket command of psychic power, implanted in Michael's side so that it immediately replaces the diseased one. Exercise 5. Do the same thing with the other visceral organs. Make sure that you can visualize any organ and substitute it for the diseased one. This process is the self-conscious healer. Start applying these 4 points on people as soon as possible. You will find them extraordinarily effective. Lecture 13. How to achieve what seems impossible thanks to body electricity and brain antennae. The human lamp. P. It is well known that some beings can illuminate darkness by creating shadowless light on their own. Some bacteria emit not only heat, but also visible light rays. In 1923, Gurwitch discovered that cell divisions were stimulated when, as it grew, the tissue of a plant was exposed to the root tip of an onion. By appropriate means, he showed that radiation was emitted from the onion root tip, and that these rays stimulated mitosis, division, and multiplication in the cells. Thus, it cannot be ruled out that the power to create light exists latent in all matter, living and dead. Light is created by heat, and all living or dead matter can create heat by organic, chemical, or atomic processes. You have been shown that muscles and nerves react electronically, that the whole body reacts electronically and produces radiant heat and infrared rays. It is therefore possible for those who are totally master of psychic power to develop this heat 100 times and thus create the human lamp. How to create a human lamp? The electrical organs of fish, such as eels and torpedoes, can cause an electrical discharge that in some cases measures between 300 and 800 volts. Their electric organ consists of structures in the form of plates arranged in series or columns that are supposed to come from the embryological evolution of end plates of a skeletal muscle. One side of each plate is innervated and acquires a negative charge when the animal gives an electrical discharge. The other side acquires a positive plus charge. High concentrations of cholesterol, the enzyme that dissolves acetylcholine, are produced in these electrical organs. Thus, acetylcholine is intimately associated with electrical discharges in these electric organs. In some species, acetylcholine also accompanies the conduction of nerve electricity along the entire nerve, and not only at the junction point. Consequently, the production of acetylcholine is absolutely necessary for the nerves and electric organs of these species to produce electricity. How then can you create a human lamp? Evidently by releasing acetylcholine not only at the junctions, but along the entire length of the nerve body. How is it possible to accomplish such an incredible thing? With the psychic antidroma. The miracle of psychic antidroma. When the message for the brain reaches the end of a nerve segment, it cannot bypass the junction of nerves unless the nerve ends secrete acetylcholine. And, according to the Bell-Magendie law, nerve electricity in a message-carrying nerve segment can only circulate in the direction of the brain, and never in the opposite direction. Nevertheless, in 1876, Sticker reported the existence of antidromic nerves. In other words, he had discovered that nerve electricity could also circulate, in certain types of nerves, in the opposite direction. But his discovery was ignored. Later Bayliss took up the matter again and concluded that Sticker was right. Nerve electricity in a nerve segment can circulate in the opposite direction. The moment it reaches the nerve junction, it can reverse direction and send back the completely different message. Bayliss and Langley called such nerves antidromic, i.e., going against the current. In the limbs, such nerves pass mainly through the blood vessels of the skin and muscles. They can create the human lamp because it is the skin that casts the light rays and glows. Bayliss and Langley also found that antidromic messages could be provoked by electrical, thermal, or mechanical stimuli. You already know that the hysteric can produce any physiological reaction in his own body because his psychic power command, even when used negatively, is a powerful stimulus. The same thing applies to the psychic antidroma. You too can reverse the direction of nerve electricity in a nerve with an order. This nerve segment will then hold back at the junction point, acetylcholine producing to allow nerve electricity to bypass the junction point, which will send the message back to the starting point. The resistance that this antidromic nerve electricity encounters in the body of the nerve segment results from the creation of an astounding amount of energy and heat. As a result, the skin gets rid of an abnormal amount of radiant heat and infrared rays. This is the psychic antidroma. The hotter and shorter the infrared rays are, the shorter and brighter their waves will be in the darkness. By increasing the energy and heat produced in the nerve bodies by a large number of times, the human lamp can be created. Exercise. How to develop psychic antidroma and create a human lamp. Sit comfortably in your room and dip one hand into a bowl of very cold water. A message will immediately rush over your message-carrying nerves to the brain. When it reaches the junction point in the column, it will skip it and leave for the sensation recording center. Along this run, the nerves will have produced a negative charge of nerve electricity. But do not let the sensation center spread the message all the way to the conscious mind, because either it would order the conscious mind to accept the cold sensation coming from the hand as less cold than it actually is, or it would issue an order to the arm muscles to retract the hand immediately from the cold water. To prevent this, at the very moment you put your hand in cold water, launch a rocket command to the sensation recording center for it to convert the cold sensation it receives from your hand into a sensation of intense heat. If the rocket command is powerful enough, an antidromic effect will occur on the message. Stop it and return it to its place, generating a negative charge of nerve electricity along the message-carrying nerve to the skin of the hand, and bringing the order to feel intense heat. Practice this exercise and multiply the rocket command transmission force of psychic power to arrest and convert the message until the cold hand feels warm. This is the way to begin to create the human lamp. This exercise will develop in you the faculty to produce bodily heat at will with incredible rapidity. Exercise to use psychic antidroma for current purposes. Exercise 1. How to revive fading love, thanks to psychic antidroma. Your wife or husband no longer seems as ardent as in the past. This very evening begin to exercise the psychic antidroma. Its message of coldness has already reached the sensation center and produces along its course a negative charge of nervous electricity. Now launch a command rocket of psychic power at the sensation recording center, ordering it to convert the cold sensation into one of burning desire. The command rocket will immediately cause an antidromic effect against the coldness message, causing it to return along the same nerve with a command message of burning desire. The clash between the two types of message will trigger so much heat that it will accumulate on the surface of the skin so as to overcome the other's resistance. Exercise 2. How to quickly overcome another person's defenses against you through psychic antidroma. Remo acts socially or in business in a suspicious manner. You feel this unnerving control from him. It is time to employ psychic antidroma on him. You send a rocket command of psychic power to your sensation recording center, ordering it to convert your hot antagonism into calm and cool-bloodedness. This causes a real battle in your nerves, and the heat produced reaches your skin and this subdues Remo. How the psychic power center can keep you young. Examples of humans living to incredible ages, some up to 300 or 400 years, rise to a fairly significant number. In many of them, after passing the century, hair of natural color resurfaced, skin rejuvenated as well as sexual activity, so that they proved 40 years younger. Many of them who lived more than 200 years were fortunate enough to experience these rejuvenations 2 or more times. Since these automatic rejuvenations are under the influence of the primitive self-consciousness, they are undoubtedly provoked by the attainment of a fairly strong primitive self-consciousness. Or they are caused by the psychic reaction of the aging endocrine glands. Such an influence would certainly be accompanied by complete automatic rejuvenation if the individual's organs and blood vessels were still normal. The key to longevity is to never accept old age as inevitable. Think and feel as if you are younger than you are. Never think that you are older than 28 or 30. You have to eat and live well to feel young. But you also have to keep launching rocket commands of psychic power to the primal self-consciousness to remind it that you are always young. This forces him to keep you much younger than you actually are, just as the hysteric determines him to keep him sicker than he actually is. How to rest in the dead man's pose. Significant rejuvenation and longevity will be greatly helped if you prescribe rest twice a day, 1/2 hour at a time. Such rest relaxes you and prevents you from feeling dejected. The best times for these half-hour rest periods are generally before meals. Exercise. Take off your shoes and lie on your back with your legs spread wide. Extend your feet and let them go naturally outward. Stretch your arms along your body. Close your eyes and cover them with a black cloth to avoid any light. Irritated eyes are one of the prime causes of tension and cause abnormal loss of electrons. Now stretch every muscle in the body. Let the whole weight of the body rest on the bed and on the ground. Lying on the sand is excellent. Or lie on the bed by placing a board between the mattress and the bed frame. Do not use the pillow if the mattress is too hard under your head. Put a 2-inch layer of foam rubber. Rest perfectly still. This dead man's position takes tension off the muscles, rests the nerves, and rapidly recharges the body with electrons. In other words, resting the muscles precedes resting the mind. The head-down position and its advantages. If you can support yourself on your hands with your feet together, leaning against the wall several times a day when your stomach is empty, you will make more blood flow to the brain and help the capillaries of the brain to stretch permanently. Narrowed brain capillaries are a threat of attack. You aid your blood vessels, particularly those in the brain. Note: if you seriously suffer from myopia, do this exercise moderately. Increasing blood circulation to the eyes increases intraocular pressure and stretches the eyeball. This increases myopia. Increasing one's electrical potential. Fresh foods are very important for health and thus for longevity. Foods in their natural state act as electrolytes in the body. To be more explicit, they can conduct an electric current as well as be decomposed by it. Everything is electric in nature, including man's organism. The atmosphere is electric and has a positive charge, plus, and the Earth has a negative charge. The interaction of the positive charge of the atmosphere with the negative charge of the Earth makes all life possible. Man, consequently, must possess electrical potential because he is a living thing. He is composed of two positive and negative charges, but he is negatively charged. When he is not in his normal charge, as you know, it means that he is ill. The body is constantly immersed in a sea of electrical energy from which it draws life. You absorb this energy through numerous channels, all of which lead directly to the body's cells. These channels are the liquid foods you consume, the air you breathe, and in addition the nervous system. To improve health, you must increase your electrical potential. Psychic power can be projected more energetically when the body is rich in electricity. Pure air, fresh foods, rest and control of the primal self all increase the electrical potential in the body. This gives you increased muscle tone and a feeling of inner strength. This results in great confidence in everything you are about to do. Why you can perform miracles. The powers of molecular action. Miracles are possible to be performed. Life is a colossal visible cloud as large as the entire universe. It penetrates and is therefore part of everything. Men all agree that there is a unity that penetrates every apparent form of life. They all agree that material forms, forces, energies, and principles must come from this principle. Since cyclomancy primarily seeks a scientific understanding of all mysteries, we shall call this unity molecular action. Everything is therefore related to molecular action. Everything depends on and derives from it. You can therefore influence everything you can desire, because everything has molecular action as you do, and is therefore related to you. Through molecular action, you can control what you want. Time, space, cause and effect do not exist in the eternal. Everything is molecular action. This is the reason why miracles are possible. If you sufficiently control the molecular action of everything, you can perform miracles. In physics and chemistry, the molecular action of different substances is controlled by changing their temperature or mixing them some other substances with which they react. They are also controlled by electricity, light radiation, magnetic attraction or repulsion. There are other means used by the mind, which we will explain further. The latent power that abounds in everything. Everything in the universe is alive from a molecular point of view. The molecules of any matter, living or dead, are in constant motion. They are always attracted or repelled by one or more molecules. The molecules of matter may split and their parts recombine with other atoms and molecules and form new molecules, but they always continue to be in motion. Ice can turn into water, water into steam and steam into water, but it is still matter formed by molecules in action. When matter is a pure element such as calcium, it consists only of atoms of that element. But since most matter exists in combined form, it is more practical to call unity molecular action. You can perform miracles if you control the power of molecular attraction, that binds the molecules of influenced matter together. The power of psychic power control over matter. Now you know how to exercise control of psychic power over objects and situations. All you have to do is establish molecular psychic contact with them. And this is possible because everything is composed of molecules in action. How to establish this contact? By varying the temperature and pressure of the projection of psychic power. In a solid, the molecules are evidently more numerous and thicker than in a liquid or a gas. A solid contains many more molecules than a liquid. Ice and water are perhaps the only exception because ice expands. A liquid contains many more molecules than a gas. The molecular velocity of a solid is consequently less than that of a liquid or a gas. When a substance is cooled, the opposite phenomenon occurs. Its molecules shrink to such an extent that the substance sometimes changes shape. Then a gas becomes a liquid, and a liquid a solid. The same thing happens with sound. When the frequency of a sound is increased, the tone goes up. When the frequency is decreased, the tone descends. To perform a miracle with a certain substance, you have to change the projection of psychic power to such a degree that it collides with the molecular concentration of this substance. You will then influence as many of its molecules as possible. If it is a gas, you must accelerate your projection of psychic power. If it is a solid, you must delay it. The following exercises will show you how molecular action can be controlled by psychic power. Exercise for molecular psychic contact. Exercise 1. How to make molecular psychic contact with a liquid or gas. Sit and look at water or air and apply the psychic arc to them as intensely as you can. The hotter the psychic arc is for the air, the better, because its molecules move faster and farther apart from each other. The exercise will perfect your aptitude for projecting hot psychic arc, and you already know how you can use the psychic arc in current life. Exercise 2. How to make molecular psychic contact with a solid. Sit down, look at a solid object, and apply the violent arc to it as intensely as you can. The violent arc heats the inside of the body just as fever does, but like fever it cools the skin considerably. The projections of the violent arc, reinforced by psychic power, transmitted by the horns of the brain, will vibrate in correlation with the molecules of the solid. Molecular eyes. How to dissolve a cloud. Some individuals in possession of psychic power have developed the power to dissolve a cloud. Let us first recall how a cloud is composed. 1. There is an air mass in the sky that contains sufficient moisture to saturate it. 2. In the cold part of this air mass, a warm air current enters. 3. The temperature resulting from this union of cold air and warm air will be lower than the humidity that already saturates the air. 4. As a result, more moisture is formed. Thus, there is too much moisture in the air mass. 5. This excessive moisture immediately condenses around floating particles and forms a cloud. To dissolve this cloud, you must raise its temperature and evaporate its excessive moisture. You must then cast hot rays on it thanks to the psychic antidroma. Exercise. For this exercise, be perfectly rested. Before beginning it, do some exercises for 5 minutes to warm up and begin to produce excessive body heat. Now, gaze fixedly at a cloud in the sky and direct your gaze to the blackest point. It is at that point that the greatest amount of moisture is concentrated, and it is from that point that rain may begin to fall. Take slow, deep inhalations and fill with electrons. Now do the psychic antidroma, intensifying to the maximum. Great heat and energy gather on your skin, and you experience a feeling of unsurpassed power that regularly increases to explode in your chest. Then blast this fireball in the direction of the sky and make it enter the cloud by means of another rocket command of psychic power from the antennae of the brain. Do this 4 times, as if you were bombarding a fortress. Complete this exercise with visualized shapes. Imagine the cloud heating up and its blackest point melting. Project this visualized shape onto the cloud. Continue projecting visualized shapes one after another until it dissolves. Conclusion. Evidently, you will not achieve any perceptible success with this exercise. You will have to increase your psychic powers at least 100 times before you succeed. But the exercise will develop your primitive self-awareness for practical purposes. The power of words. Many miracles are more easily performed with the help of words, so do not be reticent to direct the orders of psychic power with the help of words. As absurd as it may seem, superhuman beings psychically have caused earthquakes, storms, floods with the power of words. Words give visualized forms a more realistic substance because you imagine it more dynamically, even when you describe it to yourself. Proper words, repeated to yourself, can prove as effective as those of the hypnotist. Lecture 14. How to develop the vision of psychic power and reap incredible benefits from it. The vision of psychic power is the ninth important part of the primitive self-consciousness. It is also one of the most surprising parts. The miracles of psychic power vision. Through the vision of psychic power, amazing things can be accomplished. Even using only one part of it, the psychic master sees through a wall, steel, or stone, and can know what is happening in the next room or in a nearby place. Through the vision of psychic power, he can read passages from closed books and see the contents of locked safes. He sees inside the human body, and, if he knows the pathology, can diagnose diseases. He can peer into the depths of the soil on which he walks. He can discover deposits of minerals, coal, oil, and underground streams. It can magnify like a microscope, finally, physical or astral particles, up to 1,000 times larger than the microscope. It can finally see inside the atoms themselves. The vision of psychic power is an incredible accomplishment, but nevertheless, it has some limitations. It diminishes and disappears completely beyond a certain distance. This distance varies according to the degree of development of the unconscious personality and according to the power of the projection of the vision of psychic power. When using the vision of psychic power, developed to a high degree, you look through the earth, you do not see as clearly as when you look through a glass. You see as if you were looking through a body of water or through a light mist. You can see through the earth, but what you see inside fades with distance until it disappears. Adding the astral tube to the vision of psychic power, as you will learn later, can achieve better results. The 6 means of acquiring the vision of psychic power. As Eastern occultists state, psychic power vision is the faculty of making one's visual power small or large. You will achieve this by greatly varying your visual apparatus, making use of 6 means, 3 normal and 3 for psychic masters. The first 3 means, those normally used, are: 1. Vary the convexity of the ocular lens. 2. Vary the convergence of the eyeballs. 3. Vary the thickness of the pupils. You are to add the 4th half. 4. Looking through the intermolecular ether. 11th and 6th means are for the most experienced psychic masters. 5. Lengthen or shorten the eyeball by the muscular force of the eye, and make the retina move back and forth, as the mollusk does. 6. Move the lens of the eye itself back and forth, what humans do when photographing with a lens. Like the first 3, means can give you the vision of psychic power. The 3 means normally employed can work to give you the vision of psychic power by greatly improving near and far vision, as described below. 1. How the normally employed means 1, 2, and 3 work when you look at a nearby object. A. When you look at a near object, the lens of the eye increases in convexity. B. The eyes converge or approach each other to look at the same object at the same time. C. The pupils contract and reduce the color and amount of light reflected into the eyes from the object, so that you can recognize it more easily. The closer the object is, the more light and color reflected in the eyes. 2. How the normally employed means 1, 2, and 3 work when you look at a distant object? A. When you look at a distant object, the lens of the eye decreases in convexity. B. The eyes diverge and widen to give you two more parallel views. The two eyes can then look at the same object at the same time. C. Your pupils dilate and increase the color and amount of light reflected back into your eyes from the object, so that you can recognize it more easily. How to develop the vision of psychic power by the three means normally employed. To develop the vision of power, psychic by the three means normally employed, faithfully perform the following exercises. The exercises will automatically vary the convexity of the lens, the convergence or divergence of the eyeballs, and the thickness of the pupils. Exercise 1. How to develop the lens of psychic power vision and improve near vision. Open a book and look at any letter. Do not look at the letter as a whole, but separately at each line or curve of its outline, so that your eyes will converge on the fineness of the features. Now, send a rocket command from the Psychic Power Center to the Great Visual Center, ordering it to visualize the letter as if it were twice as big. Also send a second rocket command to the Organ Control Center, ordering it to stimulate the parasympathetic nerves. This is carried out by the psychic arc. Then, after launching the second rocket command, think of a plate you desire, and the nerves will dominate your body and make the eyeballs converge and the pupils contract even more. All these changes will increase your near visual acuity. This exercise will be even more useful to you if you are presbyopic or tire your eyesight when reading. The psychic master persists in this exercise until he can enlarge characters that are too small to be read. Subjects in a state of hypnosis can read much smaller characters than people in a normal state. Exercise 2. Do exercise 1 again with more letters and then whole words. Exercise 3. Do exercises 1 and 2 again with smaller and smaller characters. Exercise 4. How to develop the lens of psychic power vision and improve distance vision. Look at a distant object that you can barely make out. Choose something that has a certain width, such as a tree or a car, and look at both ends of this object at the same time to keep your eyes from converging. Keep the visual axes as parallel as possible. Doing so should bring the eyes closer to their resting position. Now send a command rocket from the Psychic Power Center to the Great Visual Center, ordering it to stimulate the sympathetic nerves. This is achieved with the violent arc. The violent arc consists of focusing on something that makes you furious. This stimulates the sympathetic nerves that secrete sympatine and dominate your body. They then cause the lens of your eyes to flatten more, your eyes to diverge more, and your pupils to dilate. These changes will increase your distance visual acuity. This exercise will be even more useful to you if you are nearsighted and cannot see clearly at a distance. The psychic master persists in this exercise until distant objects are greatly magnified. Subjects in a state of hypnosis can see extraordinarily far with their naked eyes. Exercise 5. Do exercise 4 again with other more complex objects, such as a tree with small leaves. Then try to count the leaves. Exercise 6. Do exercises 4 and 5 again with increasingly distant objects. How to develop the vision of psychic power with the 4 medium. The fourth means is to look through the intermolecular ether. Since the ether penetrates everything, to see through solids, you must see through the space of the ether between the molecules of this solid. Such a degree of vision can evidently only be attained by the one who has decided to become a psychic master, and who will develop the unconscious personality a very large number of times, overcoming the resistance of the nerve junctions. For you, increasing the primitive self-consciousness by only 1% would be equivalent to increasing it by 100% of what it is now. The acuity of your vision would gain tremendously, which would enable you to retain exceptional vision until the end of your days. Many people lose visual acuity as they age. The reason for this is not only pathological, it is also due to the neglect of making your eyesight work regularly. Sharp eyesight makes you feel young and full of life, and leads others to consider you much younger than you are. Therefore, do these exercises scrupulously, and you will get excellent results. Exercise 1. The honeycomb exercise. Take a 30 centimeter square piece of cardboard. Punch many holes like a honeycomb. Make holes about 3 millimeters in diameter. Glue the cardboard to a dark surface so you can see the dark tint through the holes. Sit a short distance from the cardboard and look at the dark dots through the holes. Do the exercise again by sitting farther away. Sit so far away that you can barely make out the separation of the holes so that you see an almost united surface. Now begin to develop intermolecular vision by applying the double command of psychic power. 1. Launch a rocket command from the psychic power center to the great visual center and order it to greatly enlarge the cardboard image in your retina. 2. Launch a second rocket command at the organ control center and immediately apply the violent arc to stimulate the sympathetic nerves. Just think of something that fills you with anger, and your eyes will automatically diverge and pupils dilate. The holes in the cardboard will reappear, and you will again distinguish the cardboard around them. Exercise 2. When you excel in Exercise 1, repeat it with another cardboard box with holes only 1.5 millimeters in diameter. Continue this exercise by placing yourself at greater and greater distances. Successful performance of this exercise will demand considerable development of your visual acuity, up to 4 times your initial acuity. Exercise 3. Whenever you get a chance, look at a muddy pond and try to identify everything on the bottom. Note: you practice looking at a dark surface between cardboard holes because the intermolecular ether is dark. It consists of waves that change rapidly in relation to the movements of myriads of molecules passing through it. Continue these exercises with smaller and smaller holes until you paste a handkerchief onto the dark surface, trying to see through the meshes of the cloth. But it is not necessary to reach this result. Be content to develop 1% of your unconscious personality, and you will be greatly rewarded. The 5 and 6 means for the miraculous vision of psychic power. The 5th and 6th means are those that the psychic master uses to effectively realize the vision of psychic power. They will be described briefly since they are difficult to control. The 5 middle. The psychic master can lengthen or shorten the eyeball at will and multiply near and far vision to considerable proportions. Physiologically, you can lengthen the eyeball rapidly to a certain degree by supporting yourself on your hands with your feet leaning against the wall for a minute or so. In this position, the eyeball fills with a large amount of watery humor. The same state is produced in humans following prolonged periods, pathologically during diseases such as glaucoma, thyroid goiter, and hysteria. But the psychic master does not lengthen or shorten the eyeball by changing the amount of aqueous humor in the eye. He contracts and relaxes the extraocular muscles and can achieve the purpose without any harm. The 6th half. The 6th and final means of psychic power vision consists of moving the lens of the eye back and forth, as one does with a camera. It is very difficult to gain mastery in this exercise. You already use it in the 5 half to a certain degree when you lengthen and shorten the eyeball. But perhaps you would do better to abandon the 6 half to the psychic master. Note: when you are self-intoxicated, there is a high self-concentration of gluten in the lens of the eye, as well as thermostable protein residues. Consequently, you need an inhalation of oxygen to keep these substances in balance. In other tissues, such a balance plays a secondary role during an auto-intoxication. When performing these exercises, try to do them in well-ventilated rooms. The best foods for developing eye power should contain a high concentration of potassium. Lesson 15. How to develop psychic power hearing and reap prodigious benefits. The indisputable proof of the hearing of psychic power. Psychic power hearing is the 10th and final part of the primitive self-consciousness. The hysteric's hearing can become up to 16 times finer than that of a normal individual. The main cause lies in the fear of persecution and complete distrust of people, It is not because of abnormal control of a conscious or subconscious mind that the hearing becomes so fine, because all attempts made to improve hearing in normal people have failed. There is no doubt, then, that it is another power that performs this miracle in the hysteric. It is therefore the hearing power of psychic power. The hearing of psychic power. The anatomical structures of psychic power hearing are the auditory nerve and the temporal lobe, namely the lower parts of the brain. The part of the auditory nerve affected by psychic power hearing is the electricity of the cochlea, but the two parts of their temporal are also affected. That is, the great auditory center and the psychic power auditory center, which makes up the various unidentified regions of the lobe cortex. You already know how to increase the electricity of the cochlea by controlling the psychic power. Now study how to arrange the great auditory center under the control of psychic auditory power. Add to that the electricity of the intensified cochlea, and you have the hearing of psychic power. The composition of the great auditory center. The great auditory center is located in the cortex of the temporal lobe, which includes the lower parts of the brain. It receives only sound waves at the same frequency as those of the original sound. This is so because the nerve electricity that reaches it at the end of the journey from the ears is greatly reduced. That is why your auditory acuity cannot be compared to that of the bot. But it has the resources to match it. All you have to do is awaken this 10th part of the primitive self-consciousness, and this you will achieve by eliminating the resistance of the many points of conjunction with. 1. A giant creation of cochlea electricity. Send a rocket command from the psychic auditory power center to the ears, ordering to multiply the cochlea electricity in the auditory nerve. 2. An immediate deployment of the radiating psychic arc, which fills the junction points with acetylcholine and effectively reduces their resistance. Exercise 1. How to increase the sensitivity of hearing of the hair cells of the cochlea. Strain your ear to discern individual sounds that escape the chaos of a group of people talking some distance from you. At first catch only a few syllables, then a few words. Now you launch a rocket command of psychic power to the ears, ordering to multiply the electricity of the cochlea in the auditory nerve. To this add an irradiant psychic arc and intensify it until it propagates to the whole system. Individual sounds in the group will regularly become more intense and more distinct to your ear. Exercise 2. Do exercise 1 again, gradually increasing the distances. Exercise 3. Open the radio or television and listen to a few words. Half a minute later, adjust it to a lower tone and listen again. Continue until you can barely hear it, and launch a powerful rocket command to multiply the cochlea electricity, having it immediately followed by a radiating psychic arc. Adjust the radio or television to a lower tone still, and you will intensify the rocket command of the auditory psychic power to the cochlea electricity and the irradiating psychic arc. Exercise 4. How to hear before you really hear as the blind do. As you lie down in the evening, remain lying down and listen for the most imperceptible sounds. The whole body lies down and rests quietly as you stretch your ears to perceive the faintest sound. You can easily train your ears to listen so intensely to a sound with your muscles. Thanks to this faculty, you can one day save your own life or the life of another. So, lie still and motionless in the middle of the night, when all is calm, and launch a rocket command to the sensation recording center to feel the smallest pressure of a sound wave against your open hands. When a sound wave of a frequency beyond those you can easily understand reaches the hair cells, it will be picked up by the skin of the hands and sent to the sensation recording center. From there it will be automatically diffused to the cortex, and this will command the muscles of the hands to react to the pressure by instinctively tightening them. The important fact is that in this nerve tract, the sound wave electricity need only overcome 2 junction points instead of 4. In spite of everything, the nerve electricity of the sound wave will not benefit in this nerve tract from the electricity of the cochlea, because this will not be transmitted by the auditory nerve. It will have to overcome only the resistance of 2 junction points instead of 4. and thus the muscles of the hand will be stimulated in a very powerful way. You will not hear the sound with your hand, but you will hear something happening. The muscles will alert you to the sound even before the ears. You have given ears to the muscles. The blind man develops this aptitude to a much higher degree than normal. Exercise 7. When you are in bed, try to hear the faint sound of the breathing of someone sleeping in the next room, the passing of a vehicle, or the song of a distant bird. Exercise 8. Do exercise 7 again, trying to hear sounds covered by other sounds. The least important parts of the primitive self-conscious. The remaining but less important parts of the primitive self will be summarized now. They are: 1. The rhinencephalon, the olfactory center in the temporal lobe. 2. The pineal gland, the epiphysis at the base of the brain. 3. The uncertain zone. Its nerve connections are poorly known. 1. The olfactory center. The rhinencephalon represents the oldest part of the telencephalon. It constitutes almost the entire brain in fish, amphibians, and reptiles. It is weakly developed in relation to the rest of the brain, but you possess an olfactory correlation center and a reflex olfactory pathway. The rhinencephalon includes all those portions of the brain that are involved in receiving and conducting olfactory impressions. In humans, some of these portions have been reduced to a thin leaf, while others have become too large and have been covered by the development of neighboring regions of the brain. The olfactory center is located in the temporal lobe. 2. The pineal gland. The pineal gland is a small gray-red conical gland located in the depression existing between the two upper colliculi. The pineal gland represents the rudiments of a photosensitive organ that exists in certain reptiles and other small vertebrates. In the Hatteria, a New Zealand lizard, the pineal eye is located at the surface in the middle of the head and is thought to serve as a light and heat-receiving organ. Its function in humans is unknown. 3. The uncertain zone. It is the central lobe. Its nerve connections are little known. Conclusion. In less organized vertebrates, the spinal cord, which is the lowest level of nervous development, has considerable independent activity. Consequently, it should really be called the original primitive self-conscious. It is still part of the present primitive self because all the nerves that govern the body pass through it to get to the brain. The gradual increase in the complexity of life, as seen in the frog, dog, monkey, and finally man, is due to the corresponding increase in the size, and especially in the complexity of the cerebral cortex, and its influence and control over the lower levels of nerve development. Thus, complexity develops the thinking mind and numbs the primary centers. The higher nerve developments do not supplant the lower ones. They act through them, just as the brain acts through the spinal cord. To develop the unconscious personality, you must give independence to these lower levels of nerve development, especially the 10 important parts of the primal self, and then control them through the psychic power center. You are now ready to study physio-astral cyclomancy. Lecture 16. How to place the aura and its psychometric power under the control of psychic power. That which controls the physio-astral powers. The aura, the astral body are not under the control of the conscious mind, or even under that of the subconscious mind, because the latter disappears immediately with death, while the primitive self-consciousness survives it for a time. The aura and the astral body must then be under the control of the primal self-consciousness. To gain control of psychic power over the aura and astral body, you must therefore develop the primitive self-consciousness, and later use it to bring these parts under the control of psychic power. Now you are ready to learn physio-astral cyclomancy. How to use the aura for psychic power control. The aura and the astral body come from the body, and consequently are made from the body, by means of the powers of the body itself that you have already studied. They are incredible only because they accomplish that which disturbs the imagination. But there are no mysteries surrounding them. Learn to use them without fear. The aura and its composition. The aura is a nebulous extension around the body that accompanies you everywhere. It is invisible to the uninitiated eye. It changes shape, size, and color according to the state of the mind and body. But in reality, it is but the combination of the four forms of bodily emissions. For this reason, it is strongly conditioned by the different waves of the brain and the acetylcholine or acidity of the blood. The aura is a gas or plasma and is composed of 1. H2O, water and sweat. CO2, carbon dioxide in sweat. 2. Radiant heat. 3. Infrared rays. 4. Radio waves, electromagnetic radiation. 5. Magnetism, preserving it around the body. 6. It is acidic or alkaline according to the body's particular physiology and brain waves. 7. The aura is very sensitive to mind and psychic control. It does what the mind thinks. It is always willing to follow the instructions of the mind or body. The importance of alkalinity or acidity of the aura. Alkaline elements give a greater imprint to the aura, which has a remarkable effect because it prolongs youth and delays old age. An acidic system contains an excessive amount of products exploited in the blood, such as non-protein nitrogen, carbonic acid, creatine, etc. An alkaline system contains these products in less quantity and demands less from the heart. Thus, the heart must pump less blood through the lungs to oxygenate the exploited gaseous product found there. When your system is acidic, you not only feel older because your heart works harder, but also because you are physiologically older than you would be if your system were alkaline. In other words, the aura is related to biological life until it separates from the body, which happens at the end of life. When you are sick, the aura becomes more rarefied, and it detaches as if it is about to leave the body. When you are well, the aura clings to the body with greater determination, just as electrons do. When the system is alkaline, the mind is clear, fresh and vigorous, and psychic power is developed to the fullest. Control over the aura is then also very secure. When the body is sour and the mind loses its vigor, psychic power wanes and control over the aura diminishes. When you are unconscious or weak, or asleep or near death, the aura separates from the body and hangs a meter or two above you. The body has then lost much of its magnetism. To masterfully control your aura, you need mental vigor to launch explosive psychic rockets. You need an absolutely rested mind and body and an alkaline system. Note: the terms acid and alkaline employed physiologically mean that the blood has used a large part of its alkaline or acid reserve so as to maintain its normal physiological state, which we commonly refer to by the sign. The blood itself always remains sufficiently normal, except in extreme cases such as uremia. When the blood has used much of its equilibrium reserve, the body strives to replenish it by the frantic movements of deep breathing in the case of acidity, or by feverish activity in the case of alkalinity. You can use your aura very effectively in quite a few other ways. One of the most remarkable for current life is the psychic spear. The psychic harpoon. A young man projected photons of infrared rays so powerful that they pushed his aura so far that he reached a girl walking 20 feet in front of him, as if he had a giant hand. When the girl turned around and saw no one who could touch her, the aura vanished. It was evidently an abuse of the psychic harpoon. Exercises to develop the psychic harpoon. Exercise 1. How to amaze and amuse your girlfriend or wife with the psychic harpoon. The next time your wife walks ahead of you in the street, look at her intensely and imagine that your aura surrounds her like an invisible, thick sack. Now apply the irradiating psychic arc to your body to increase the heat on the surface of the skin. Finally, with a terrible rocket command of psychic power, launch this heat by means of the antennae of the brain, so that it prolongs fear until it touches the person in question. Ella will immediately look around and have the sensation of having been touched. Exercise 2. How to develop a mighty psychic harpoon. Sit quietly in your room and look at an object on the other side, and repeat the exercise on that object. But regularly increase the strength of the rocket command of psychic power as well as that of photon power. You already know how to increase the power of your commands. Lesson 2. To increase the power of photons, reapply the irradiant arc to your body to increase the heat of your skin. Then gather this heat into the antennae of your brain ready to be launched. Exercise 3. How to use the psychic harpoon to tame a threatening person. Someone approaches you with a threatening tone. Detonate a rocket command of psychic power through the horns of the brain to propel your aura up to him in sac form. Your pupils will automatically droop like a cat's and add hypnotic power to your gaze. Your eventual attacker will automatically feel all strength leave him. Practice the psychic spear, and with training you will be able to project it more often and more intensely. With it you will be able to force someone who does not know you, especially on a sentimental level, to notice you, just as we will explain in the next chapter. Exercise 4. How to compel someone who does not know you to notice you with keen interest. Your heart urges you to take an interest in Julia, or Henry according to gender, but she shows little interest in you. Your eager attempts to converse with her are not well received. Nevertheless, you think that she would be yours if you could only provoke in her an irresistible interest in you. The psychic flake is the ideal means to achieve what you desire. The next time you are in its presence, look intensely at it and imagine your aura enveloping it as if in an invisible sack. Now, apply the radiating psychic arc to your body and increase the warmth of your skin. Launch the heat of your body with the horns of the brain by means of a terrible rocket command ordering it to be fascinated by you, and reinforce the rocket with a terrible jet of photons so that it envelops it with the aura until it touches it. Send a second, more powerful flare if necessary, and she will look around as if you have touched her. When she notices that you are too far away to touch her, she will feel a strange interest in you. She will therefore have noticed you. From this moment on, use mental dominance over her. How to use psychometrics to control psychic power. Psychometry is the faculty of telling the story of an unknown object by psychic means. Through it, Chalky described the lives of people who were totally unknown to him. Psychometry is an incredible physio-astral power. On the basis of it, a woman described scenes from centuries past, holding in her hands a stone collected from the ruins. What is the basis of this extraordinary faculty? It sometimes happens that the human aura imprints its biography on everything it comes in contact with, and this impression can remain on the object even for centuries. To acquire the faculty of psychometry, you must learn to sensitize your being to the molecular action of the aura imprinted or attached to the object. Learn this with the following exercises. Exercise 1. How to establish the past history of an object by simply holding it in your hand. You receive a gift from your husband or your wife, but you have good reason to believe that it was purchased and offered to someone else first. You do not want your spouse to think you suspect this, so you apply psychometry. Sit in a quiet, dark room and hold the gift lightly in your hands. Close your eyes and empty your conscious mind so that the psychic power center can adapt to the molecular action of the aura that is imprinted or attached to the object, i.e. the aura of the third person, if any. Remain still and throw a psychic spear at the object through the brain's horns. Your aura will penetrate every astral particle of the aura attached to this object. 2 seconds later, with a command from the psychic power, begin to bring the psychic harpoon back to you through the skin of the hand holding the object, and let the object bring you the sense of the molecular action it carries. Hold your breath to help you maintain absolute stillness, and let the sense penetrate your skin and stimulate the nerve electricity of the message-carrying nerves. The first few times you attempt these experiments, you will feel nothing, but gradually you will become aware of a vibrating sensation that slips into your arms up to your spine, as the nerve electricity increases in the message-carrying nerves. Always keep the conscious mind totally empty so as not to interfere with the message. The sensation you feel is different from any you have felt up to now. It keeps moving to the center of the psychic power. And then, all of a sudden, you will feel as when you unexpectedly remember a name you have been trying to recall for a long time. You experience a series of sudden, abrupt whispers in the conscious mind as messages flow in one after another from the psychic power center to discuss their interpretation to you. Suddenly, a vague image of something appears through the void of the conscious mind. It becomes clearer and becomes evident in something that has meaning in the appearance of still or moving forms. This may also appear in the form of an actual scene. Describe what exactly you see, and you will have extracted the past history of this gift by simply holding it in your hands. Exercise 2. Repeat exercise 1 with different objects. Lent objects belonging to different people, and try to get as much information about them as possible. To improve the results when creating the vacuum in the conscious mind, stretch the muscles from head to toe. Stretch your eyebrows, cheeks, jaws, neck, arms, hands, shoulders, trunk, legs, and feet first. Try to feel as if you are lifeless while holding the object to be analyzed in your hands. Exercise 3. For even better results, place your hands on your knees, holding the object against your legs with one. Do not tense your muscles, even those in the hand holding the object. Cross your feet and let your knees go outward naturally. Do not rest your feet with the sole on the ground, but let them rest prone on the outer edge. Stretch your neck, but do not let your head fall forward onto your chest. This would interrupt the circulation of blood in the body. Completely relax the mind and body so as to present the slightest barrier to the arrival of messages from the aura imprinted on the object. Exercise 4. How to know what takes place at a given time in a certain place. Hold in your hands objects that are related to distant scenes, such as a piece of metal, a plant, etc. Apply the techniques learned in previous lessons and try to probe what is happening in those places at that given time. Exercise 5. How to find and/or deposit. Hold in your hands a sample of ore originally discovered in the same location where you are doing the experiment. Close your eyes, create a vacuum in your mind, and relax your muscles. Unleash a psychic harpoon at the substance and let it penetrate every astral particle of its aura. 2 seconds later, begin to withdraw the harpoon through the skin of the hand holding the object and drag the metal aura with it. Remain still and try to feel the molecular action of the aura as it penetrates your skin and stimulates nerve electricity in the message-carrying nerves. At first you feel nothing, but soon you will notice a slight itching in your fingers. The sensation suddenly ceases, but gradually you experience a vibrating sensation rising from your arms to your spine. Do not stop the information from the aura of the substance. Do not stop the messages directed to the mind, thinking of something else. Keep your mind clear and your muscles relaxed. All of a sudden, a series of abrupt rattles hit the mind as messages flow in from the center of psychic power. You have your eyes still closed when a vague image appears in the emptiness of your mind. Little by little, it becomes clearer. You begin to see the earth, the rocks, the trees. The image becomes clearer, and a distinct panorama reveals itself to your eyes. If you already know the place, you will know where it is. Otherwise, you can visit some suspicious places and still discover it. Samples of the same substance possess the same molecular action, and there is a radio wave connection between them, especially if they are close together. The psychic power center will sense this connection because when you are on the spot where the ore is buried, the hand holding the sample will shake violently. Psychometry and the past history of objects. With psychometry, you will be able to describe scenes related to objects from thousands of years ago. Psychometry through old letters. Look in a crate for old letters and try to psychometricize them. After some practice, you will be able to derive a great deal of information. Psychometry can take on great value for you in your current life. If you love to write stories, it will help you uncover surprising mysteries and intrigues. It can reveal much about a person's past and his or her true character. It can help you discover a rich deposit. It is a physical astral activity that you need to develop. Physiologists state that in ordinary vision, you no longer perceive the colors surrounding images because you have come to ignore them. Such colors are undoubtedly the colors of the auras of objects photographed on the retina. Lecture 17. How to develop and use the astral senses to control psychic power. The importance of the astral senses. The astral senses are superphysical senses, that is, in contact with spheres above the physical level. They are related to the astral body, just as the physical senses are related to the physical body. The astral body, according to Webster, is a supposed mind or double of the human body, capable of leaving it at will. This happens with your body. It carries your form and does not leave it permanently except when you die. The astral senses are linked to it and allow you to receive impressions on the astral or spiritual plane, just as the physical senses allow you to receive impressions on the physical plane. The astral senses are the counterpart of the physical senses and do the same thing, but on a different plane. A psychic contrast occurs on the physical and astral planes. On the physical plane, however, psychic communication is less continuous and precise because you have lost the full use of the primitive self-consciousness. On the astral plane, psychic communication is clear, continuous, and sure. Like the average individual, you use the astral plane only occasionally, but the master psychic can switch between the physical and astral senses at will. He can also function on the two planes at the same time. This attitude, which is very difficult to achieve, is called physio-astral. Also, it is not necessary to travel in the astral body to use the astral senses. In clairvoyance, astral vision, psychometry, you always remain in the physical body, but you derive information from the astral plane through the astral senses. Unless you are a mystic born, you cannot expect to achieve the smallest result on the astral plane before you have manifested some mastery of the physical senses, or of some higher power, as you did in the previous lessons. But, having already done so, you are ready to add the incomparable power of the astral world to the primitive self-consciousness. How to place the astral senses under psychic control. The easy way to bring the astral senses under the control of psychic power is to develop two important astral senses. 1. The sense of the presence of living things. 2. The psychic sense, the center of psychic power. The former is primarily a protective sense. Like the primitive self-consciousness, it is in a state of hibernation in civilized man because it has felt less useful than in the past. But soldiers at the front need it when the enemy is near, and so do prisoners of war when they attempt escape. In cities where crime has increased singularly, you regularly need the sense of the presence of living things to warn you of possible physical danger. Thanks to this sense, you cannot be lured into a pitfall or easily attacked from behind. The sense of the presence of living things is essential to projections of psychic power because it intensifies the radio waves and enables you to establish contact with the living thing more easily. Exercises to develop a sense of the presence of living things. Exercise 1. How to protect yourself against the threat of a hidden assailant. Sit in a quiet park or town square and close your eyes. Keep them closed for 5 to 10 minutes until you hear someone approaching. Then hold your breath and remain absolutely still. Strive to pick up the smallest noise near you and try to feel how far away this person is from you. Throw a psychic spear to feel the molecular action of his aura and immediately retract it into your psychic power center. You will be surprised how quickly you progress in this exercise. Exercise 2. To perfect exercise 1, repeat it by dividing it into many small parts. Close your eyes, freeze with a deep breath, and listen for different noises near you. Calculate exactly where they are coming from. Then open your eyes and verify your calculations. Then do the exercise again with more and more distant and indistinct noises, and in this way you will train your mind to become exact in establishing the distances and origin of the noises, which automatically trains the subconscious mind and the psychic power center to do even better. Exercise 3. Do exercise 2 again applied to moving objects. With your eyes closed, calculate the exact speed of a vehicle and determine where it will be a second or two later. Then open your eyes and check your accuracy. This exercise is of great value in determining the speed of an advancing invisible enemy and in choosing the best position for the astral tube. Exercise 4. How to know who an individual looks like before you have seen him or her. Do exercise 3 again. With your eyes closed, imagine who the approaching person looks like. Launch a psychic spear and send him your aura in the form of a sac in which you wrap it to get a model of his figure. Feel the molecular action of this pattern and bring it back to the center of psychic power. Then check and verify the reality. With this exercise, you will be able to see into people's current lives before you have met them and be better prepared to meet them and manipulate them to your advantage. How to use the astral tube for psychic power control. We now come to one of the greatest discoveries for sending or receiving messages on the astral plane. It is about the astral tube. It is a tube that you form in the air or ether by means of psychic power commands and photons sent or received by you. The astral tube begins with 2 narrow tubes with thick astral walls, about 1.80 meters long, that start from the eyes. The aperture of each tube should be no wider than the diameter of the pupil of each eye. Light rays are kept compact in the tubes and remain so until they reach their destination, without scattering, thus keeping their power intact. When the psychic conditions are ideal, in a slumbering, sleeping state of mind, you discharge upon the subject to be influenced, an order of psychic power with the infrared rays and radio waves concentrated in these 2 small tubes, and it will dig a channel of electrons into the air and astral atmosphere. This channel is the astral tube, and it immediately becomes an easy path for sending or receiving psychic impressions. It actually consists of 2 small channels that gradually approach each other and meet when they reach their destination. The astral tube intensifies the projections of psychic power to a very high degree, and messages and orders are conducted to their destination with great vigor. This is also true in the case of you having to receive messages and orders. If you try to see, hear, or read the thoughts of others at a great distance, you will see and hear them more easily with the astral tube. A great advantage of the astral tube is that, to use it, you do not need to fall asleep or be in a trance. It is also very practical in daily life to be able to communicate with others by thought alone. Therefore, practice the following exercises assiduously. Exercise 1. How to create the astral tube for the projection of psychic power. This exercise can be done standing, sitting, or lying down. The best position, however, is lying down, because you can better economize your physical energy for the exercise. So lie on the bed with your eyes closed, as you did for psychometry. Now create 2 thick tubes of astral material of 1.80 meters each. Apply the irradiant psychic arc to the whole body. Visualize a delicious dish by intensifying the image each time saliva comes to the mouth to warm the skin. Gather this heat in the horns of the brain and detonate a violent rocket command, and your eyes will launch the irradiant rays with a Herculean charge of photons through the 2 narrow channels, releasing a huge mass of electrons into the air. Aim the astral tube directly at the brain horns of the subject to be influenced. Strengthen the power of the rays by sending rocket commands through the astral tube itself. A feeling of rigidity will occur between you and the subject, as if the tube were a hard, opaque, rubbery substance that creates a direct channel of communication between you. Exercise 2. How to project messages through the astral tube. Now project your message onto John or Joan. In your retina, it is converted into energy and heat, and then into radio waves. From the retina, you launch these radio waves through the astral tube onto the subject. Because the astral tube retains the parallel radio waves at the beginning of the journey, as you already know, they retain their compactness and intensify the message hundreds or thousands of times, like a laser. But you still double the intensity of the message with a rocket command of psychic power to double the power of the photons of the radio waves and shorten their length. When radio waves reach John or Joan, they break into their brain antennae and are converted into nerve electricity. The shorter the waves are, the more the optic nerve fibers are charged with nerve electricity, and the more intensely the effects of the message will be recorded in his or her psychic power center and then spread to the mind. Intensify the projection of your message through the astral tube by doubling the photon strength of your radio waves. Exercise 3. How to receive information from another person through the astral tube. As in Exercise 2, lie down completely and close your eyes. Create an astral tube between you and John or Joan and send him or her a rocket command of psychic power, ordering him or her to immediately get in touch with you through the tube. Now, suck in your rocket command of psychic power so that it returns to your brain antennae, and visualize the retina as it receives it, and transforms it into nerve electricity that rushes through the optic nerve into the psychic power center. A radio wave message will be immediately sent from John or Joan. Start the exercise again by tripling, quadrupling the speed of his response in order to intensify the return suction of your rocket command from the subject to your brain antennae, and thus accelerate his reaction to you. How the snake uses the astral tube to catch prey. The astral tube is basically what the snake instinctively uses to paralyze and even kill birds and small mammals, such as squirrels. The snake does not try to hypnotize them. It merely looks at them and projects in their eyes its desire to devour them alive. It can be said that an order of psychic power rushes at the prey to crash it with the force of photons. Then the rocket is led back through the astral tube to the brain antennae of this greedy snake with such intense aspiration that the prey already thinks it has been devoured. This explains the sense of helplessness that strikes the animal even before the enemy has made a movement to attack. The snake then holds its mouth open, and the subjugated prey rushes in without resistance. How to develop the astral microscope. With the astral microscope, you can see through everything. But, like all astral things, it is possible that you may never be able to use it. But even if you fail right away, you may succeed later. Here are the next steps, briefly outlined, to create the astral microscope. 1. Sit quietly in your room, close your eyes, and lie down as you did with psychometry. With the astral material, which will be described in a future lecture, create 2 astral lenses in front of you, one in front of the other, like a microscope. 2. Help them realize themselves in you by representing the light misty matter solidifying into 2 astral lenses. 3. Create the convex astral lens 5 centimeters in diameter and place it about 2.5 centimeters in front of you. 4. Make the second lens of a diameter corresponding to half the diameter of the first lens and place it about 50 centimeters in front of you. 5. Enclose the 2 lenses in an astral tube no longer than 75 centimeters, otherwise the image would be too large and spread too far across the retina, appearing blurred. This is the astral microscope. How to look through the astral microscope. 1. Hold a piece of cloth in front of you. 2. Focus the astral microscope and try to see through the mesh of the cloth. To do this, look through the top edge of the large lens that is toward you. Then let the visual rays spread out to look through the small lens further away. 3. Complete everything with a double command of psychic power by launching a first rocket to enlarge the meshes 5 times. Immediately reinforce the order with a second flare at the organ control center to adjust the eyes in close-up vision. As you progress, look for more difficult views with the astral microscope. It is not only an exercise for the eye, but continues to develop the unknown personality. How to develop the astral telescope. With the astral telescope, you can see at unlimited distances without the astral body leaving the physical body. But of course, you do not see as well as when you travel in your astral body. The astral telescope is subject to disintegration or interference from other astral currents or concentrated projections of another astral tube, because the astral plane is constantly crossed by currents, countercurrents of infrared and radio wave projections. Nevertheless, with the astral telescope you can, even at great distances, discern the aura, the emotions, and most thoughts of the people you observe. Consequently, it is a personality power worth developing. The various steps to get to the astral telescope are concisely laid out in the following exercise. Exercise. How to see what the wife or husband is doing more than 3,500 kilometers away, thanks to the astral telescope. 1. Sit quietly in your room, close your eyes, and stretch from head to toe. With the hazy astral material, make 2 astral lenses, like a telescope. 2. Represent the light nebulous matter exuding from the face that solidifies into 2 astral lenses. 3. Make the nearest astral lens 5 centimeters in diameter and place it 15 centimeters in front of you. 4. Create the second astral lens about twice the diameter of the first and place it 5 feet away from you. 5. Close the 2 lenses in the astral tube. This is the astral telescope. Like looking into the astral telescope. 1. Visualize the place where you think your wife or husband is at a given time. 2. Point the astral telescope at that location and try to see it. Look through the bottom edge of the nearest small lens, then let the visual rays spread out to look through the farther large lens. 3. Complete this with a double command of psychic power, pulling a first flare to enlarge the image 5 times, and a second to stimulate the nerves with a violent arc to accommodate the eyes to look away. If your wife, at that time, is not in the supposed place, you will not see her. If she is accompanied by someone, you will know who the person is, but you will not be able to hear what they are saying. You will also have to point the telescope several times before you can interpret what is happening. The exercises given to master the astral microscope and astral telescope will gradually make the use of glasses unnecessary. How to develop radioscopic eyes. A human being can acquire radioscopic eyes, X-rays, because the human body is radioactive. However, this fact in itself is of minimal importance. More important is to establish a mechanism with the body's emanations that reproduces the X-ray generator. You produce them outside the body by the means you have already learned, by projecting mighty photons from the brain antennae through the astral tube. But now you will have to use the astraltronic half-cone. You will learn the reasons for this in a moment. To create X-rays outside the body, follow these instructions. 1. Create a semi-cone astral trunk like a giant lampshade from your forehead. Let it extend downward at an angle of about 30 degrees and for a length of 20 centimeters, that is, long enough to reach the middle of your nose. 2. Now project a current of electrons with a command rocket that rushes out, starting from the psychic power center, passing through the brain antennae. 3. Multiply the speed of the rocket with a large thrust of photons unleashed at the same instant. 4. When this furious torrent of electrons hits the inclined surface of the suspended truncated astral semicone, it is immediately blocked, and the electron energy is abandoned and mutated into another form of energy. Less than 1% of this new energy is used to produce the X-rays. The larger amount is converted into heat. With normal electricity, the shock of such heat is enough to melt any metal. That is why the X-ray machine uses a rotating brake disc to reduce the concentrations of this heat on the target. Needless to say, in order to possess radioscopic eyes to see through the human body, you must devote your whole life to training as the psychic master does. You will have to multiply the unknown personality a great number of times in order to be able to pass the junction points of nerves without losing nerve electricity. Then you will be able to see through the human body with radioscopic eyes. By training for the acquisition of the radioscopic eyes, you will at any rate obtain a heat of penetration that will quickly subdue people's resistance. How to acquire astral hearing. With astral hearing, you can hear voices at great distances. When it is combined with astral vision, it is incomparably effective. Moreover, you can make use of it while awake and conscious, whereas you cannot make use of the astral body except when you are asleep or in trance. Exercise. To hear from someone more than 3,500 kilometers away. Sit quietly in your room and stretch from head to toe. create an astral trumpet on the outside of one of your ears. When you normally listen to a noise, you automatically listen to it as if the two ears were but one. Just as when you look at an object, you look at it as if the eyes were but one. Create the astral trumpet as you did for the astral pipe, but create it in the form of a trumpet that starts small at the ear and enlarges to a maximum of 1.20 meters in length and 60 centimeters in diameter. Now send a command rocket from the center of psychic auditive power through the auditory nerve in the opposite direction of nerve electricity, ordering the hair cells of the cochlea to receive sound from the place where your wife or husband is now. The ear can react to variant sound waves between 16,000 and 20,000 cycles per second, and within these limits, you can distinguish about 11,000 different tones. Immediately create an astral tube in front of the eyes and launch a rocket command of psychic power through the cerebral antennae to your wife and get in touch with her psychic power center, commanding it to send you her words. The radio waves of his words will be immediately sucked in by your astral tube. But break the tube when you feel that the radio waves are close to you and suck them into your ear through the astral trumpet. They will enter the ear up to the hair cells of the cochlea and stimulate the true auditory nerve and the electricity of the cochlea. Intensify this operation, and this will precipitate your wife's message to your psychic auditory power center, which will spread it to the great auditory center in your conscious mind. Lecture 18. How to derive useful knowledge from the physio-astral world through the control of psychic power. The mind's mysterious connection with the past and the future. Occultists call the annals of the Earth's past and future events Akashic annals. They claim that every Earth phenomenon, past or future, is written in the ether in the form of light rays. Those of the past move away from the Earth, and those of the future move closer. To read the past or future of anything, one need only tune the mind to the specific wavelengths of its light rays and direct the psychic message to them to get the answer. But there is an important physical fact about the Akashic annals, which has not been explained. How can a psychic message coming from a human mind and sent to the light rays of the past reach these rays, since they are equal light rays traveling at the same speed? The light rays of the past could not make contact with human ones except through the astral body, which can travel faster than light. Nevertheless, the annals of the past can be read without the astral body. The Akashic annals, consequently, do not offer a satisfactory explanation. The annals of the land of the past and future. The Earth's annals of the past consisted not only of light rays, but also of sound waves that both resulted from their physical, chemical, and mental activities when they were produced on the Earth. Instead of rushing into space at the speed of light and sound, they drifted away from the Earth together with combined forms, and were held back then by the huge pile of combined forms accumulated before them from time immemorial. This thick crust of combined forms over 1,000 kilometers is perpetually thickened by the endless addition of new combined forms. Why these combined forms do not hurtle through space at the speed of light is a mystery, but the fact that they can make contact with tuned minds indicates that this is the case. This also explains why scenes that occurred many centuries ago are sometimes spontaneously reproduced in an astral form. Worthy witnesses have witnessed annihilated battles that were suddenly recombined many centuries later in a given location. This also explains the mystery of spirit-haunted houses and repeated appearances of the same spirit in the same place over a considerable period of time. All these supernatural entities must be very close to the Earth permanently. They could not have left the Earth at the speed of light during centuries and be able to suddenly reappear traveling all that distance, unless this is done on the astral plane. But since the past can be reached without the astral body, the combined forms of the annals of the Earth cannot exist solely on the astral plane. It may be that they have weight and are thus held back by earthly attraction. Or it may be that they possess a psychometric astral link with the concerning people and places and remain bound to them until they are destroyed. That is why, with the destruction of a house invaded by ghosts, the apparitions are eliminated. But even then, they do not leave the Earth at full speed, because they can still reappear to the one whose mind is attuned to them. So, in conclusion, it could be earthly attraction or astral magnetism that binds the annals of the past to the earth. No other explanation of this mystery can be offered here. The intention was to show that the annals of the past can hardly exist as the Akashic annals explain them, but more likely that they exist under the combined forms of the annals of the earth of the past. In contrast, future Earth annals consist of light rays and sound waves emanating physical, chemical, and mental forces that converge from different directions to a specific point on Earth bearing a particular phenomenon or event. Even these cannot approach the Earth coming from great distances and traveling at the speed of light. They must wander close to the Earth, where the physical, chemical, and mental forces that cause them emanate and converge to bring them together at a certain time at a certain place. If, for example, you meet John or Joan in the street tomorrow morning, the light rays and sound waves of your minds and bodies that are converging to bring you together are certainly not traveling to the Earth millions or trillions of miles away. Rather, they exist here on Earth in minds and bodies. Once you have met and separated, the event remains attached to the two of you in the form of memory and remains close to the Earth. As you forget this encounter, its combined forms separate from your minds, but they remain close to you. When you both die, they will finally separate from the physical bodies completely, but they will always float close to the place where the encounter took place. If someone who knew both of you well were to spend time in this same place, he could feel or witness this same scene, even though the people around him might not realize anything. This, then, is the basis for being able to draw useful knowledge from the physio-astral world. Know how to tune the mind to what you want to know, and you will be able to get it. Tuning the mind to the light rays and sound waves of a scene is equivalent to feeling the molecular action of an object, as you did with psychometry. Clairvoyance of the past and future. Clairvoyance is the faculty to make contact with the annals of the earth of the past and future and to transpose them to their origin. This does not include the ability to see apparitions or visions or other supernatural entities. Every phenomenon or event possesses its own individual light rays and sound waves. No two are exactly alike. The secret of clairvoyance lies in you assuming the appropriate receptivity, or tuning your psychic power center to the specific light rays and sound waves that agree with this particular combined form. Appropriate receptivity is more easily assumed in a trance state because the conscious and subconscious minds then lose their destructive influence. The electricity of the cochlea and the brain waves of psychic power are then under control. In the clairvoyance of the future, you tune the receptivity of the psychic power center on the most probable light rays and sound waves, converging physically, chemically, and mentally in the vicinity of the Earth to cause a certain phenomenon or event. How to acquire the appropriate receptivity for the annals of the Earth, past and future. In psychometry, the aural imprint of the object quickly places you in the appropriate receptivity for its Earth annals, but to do the same thing for clairvoyance, you must find a substitute for the object. But you can do this by thinking of something else that occurred at the same time. Once you have acquired the appropriate receptivity of this something else, it will be easy to continue to focus on the annals of the Earth of this same period and acquire the appropriate receptivity for the combined form with which you want to make contact. On the other hand, you will receive a psychic message from the annals of the Earth of a combined form of a past phenomenon or event, and you will be unable to determine the time or place in which it took place. To help you, keep before you an image of something resembling what you have glimpsed in the message, or that of a historical figure of the time, and employ it to stimulate appropriate receptivity. Exercise to develop the appropriate receptivity for the annals of the land of the past. Exercise 1. How to know where your best friend went when you left him the previous night. Instead of trying to get in touch with the combined forms of a scene that happened 20 or 50 years ago, try to get in touch with those of a scene from the previous night. An excellent scene you can start practicing with is to try to find out where your best friend went the previous night after leaving you and what he did in the next hour. Sit and lie down in a quiet place and visualize your friend as you saw him or her the previous evening, and replay in your mind the image of the two of you at the time you broke up. Now imagine yourself in the guise of the friend immediately after the separation, so that you now think and feel exactly as he thought and acted at that time. It is the quickest means of tuning your mind with its own and making it receptive to the combined forms it has released into space at that moment. As a result, the light rays of these combined forms will be sucked into your psychic power center and the sound waves into your auditory power center. When you have practiced this exercise for some time, the scenes will take shape in the mind and you will rapidly develop the faculty of appropriate receptivity. Exercise 2. Do exercise 1 again in a more rigorous uni manner, with scenes that are obviously increasingly distant in time. Exercise 3. Repeat exercises 1-2 with historical scenes. You will be amazed to see how easily you will have acquired the appropriate receptivity, and will soon be able to gain useful knowledge from the annals of the land of the past. Exercises to develop the appropriate receptivity for the annals of the land of the future. The means of acquiring the appropriate receptivity for the earth annals of the future is similar to that of acquiring the receptivity of the past. But instead of putting yourself in the position of the past, you put yourself in the position of the future. Instead of putting yourself in your friend's place after breaking up the previous night, put yourself in his place to know how he will behave when you meet him next time. Exercise 1. How to predict what your best friend will do when you meet him tonight. Sit in a quiet place with your eyes closed and your muscles relaxed. Imagine what your friend will look and act like tonight. To make things easier, create his or her day as you envision it. As your receptivity improves, large waves of color pass before your eyes and result in shapes or scenes of your friend going about his daily tasks. Now concentrate on seeing how he will act tonight. Since the combined form of how he will act tonight is already formed, his light rays and sound waves will find ready receptivity in your psychic power center. Since these forces are already converging before they actually meet and create a combined form for the annals of Earth, your mind will be transported with them and will know in advance what your friend is likely to do tonight. Exercise 2. How to know in advance what a friend will do at some time in the future. Sit or lie down with your eyes closed and focus on a friend. Imagine yourself in his place to quickly acquire the appropriate receptivity for his future combined forms. Then launch a command rocket of psychic power by asking him when he will get married, when he will lose employment, when he will take a trip, etc. Since his psychic power center is already receptive to the converging light rays and sound waves that are on the verge of meeting and creating a combined form in the future of the response of your request, the question will be connected with the appropriate receptivity and will discern the final construction of this upcoming combined form and report this knowledge to your psychic power center. Note: do not hope for 100% success. You cannot understand more than 10% of your friend's true personality. You have not developed 100% appropriate receptivity because you have not developed 100% unconscious personality. But developing such a faculty even as little as 1% may be enough to get a valid answer to your request. How to look into the crystal to help appropriate receptivity. Seeing into the crystal can help appropriate receptivity. Accessories can help accelerate initial results, but in general, delay progress by encouraging laziness. Acting alternately with or without accessories is wiser. Periodic progress with accessories will give you confidence and launch you faster toward new achievements. A wide variety of objects or makeshift means have been used to see into the crystal. These include the crystals themselves and other light-reflecting objects, pieces of quartz, sparkling stones, sunlit water, flames, sparks, mirrors, blood, the Maori, etc. A wide variety of objects have been used at all ages and in every country by civilized and non-civilized peoples. A crystal ball is no more useful than a shiny surface to look at. A bright surface reflects so much light that it temporarily stuns the nerve ends of the optic nerve, so that the eyes perceive only the bright surfaces within the visual field and do not see the other darker ones. The effect partially hypnotizes the mind, and the psychic power center takes control over you. However, this does not develop the primitive self-consciousness, but simply allows the conscious personality to lose its control over you, and also encourages the undeveloped primitive self-consciousness to momentarily control you more easily. True appropriate receptivity increases only when you develop the primitive self-awareness beyond the normal, as in the exercises in past lessons. By all means, perform the following exercises to gain more confidence in developing appropriate receptivity and gain the knowledge of the physical astral world more easily. Exercise 1. How to look into the crystal to increase appropriate receptivity. When contemplating the crystal or similar object, you should be quiet and serious. Sit in a comfortable chair and place the crystal about 60 centimeters in front of your eyes. At this level, the muscles in your eyes and neck are relaxed, allowing you to fall more easily under the enchantment of the crystal. Do not strain despite everything, and also squint your eyes if you feel the need to do so. Try to see something familiar in the crystal, a friend's face or a typical scene from current life. After many experiments, the first scene you will see will be a milky haze, and the crystal will lose its transparency. Gradually, a shape, a face, or a scene will appear as when you develop a film. You may succeed the first time you try, especially if you try to visualize something in the crystal that is very familiar to you, such as a chair, a ring, or a familiar face. Note: store the crystal in a safe and secure place. When you use it regularly, the molecules on its surface change position and acquire a harmony of molecular action in accordance with your psychic power center. The crystal then becomes even more useful in helping you develop the appropriate receptivity. But it will not be more than an aid. How to use practical clairvoyance to improve the future. Clairvoyance, the faculty of predicting the future, is certainly a desirable faculty. With it, you will be able to spot life more competently and take advantage of all opportunities that come your way. It is the ability to be able to read the annals of the land of the future. It is nonsense to say that knowledge of the future means taking the pleasure out of life. If, on the contrary, you know the future, you will find the best advantages and pleasures of life. It would be foolish to criticize the acquisition of security for old age on the pretext that this may take away pleasure, or to drive a car without knowing whether the brakes work, on the pretext that it is more pleasant to drive that way. The same thing applies to knowledge of the future. How could we better organize life and avoid unnecessary risks? If you study the future objectively and arrange sensible and practical plans, life will be a great satisfaction for you. Most of the difficulties you encountered in life could have been avoided if you had known in advance some insignificant but decisive detail. If Hitler or Napoleon had foreseen the catastrophic winters of the Russian campaigns, they might have prepared better or delayed the invasion to a more propitious time. You too have probably experienced losses in business and social or love life just because you were unable to foresee some small impediment or some unexpected detail. An insignificant change in personality may be all you need to avoid most future difficulties. How to practice and develop practical clairvoyance. To be a seer means to develop to the fullest the faculty of connecting your psychic power centers with the light rays and sound waves converging from the annals of the earth in order to convert them into thought forms that the conscious mind can study and interpret. The practice of clairvoyance involves 4 important degrees. 1. Grade. Set a daily time for exercise in a quiet room. 2. Grade. Lock the door to avoid interruptions. Then, darken the room. The chances of clairvoyance increase 20 times in a dark place. In any case, starlight or moonlight is preferable to electric light. 3. Grade. The test of innate clairvoyance. Look at a spot on the wall for 6 minutes with a clear mind. If you feel drowsy, you have the makings of a seer. All you need is patience. 4. Degree. Another test is to breathe rapidly and vigorously for 90 seconds. If you become dizzy, you can become a seer, because this indicates that the brain reacts quickly to an excess of oxygen, and the body rapidly absorbs electrons from the air. If you repeat this test several times, it is almost certain that you will enter a conscious dream state. In this state, you will be able to see without your eyes. If shortly afterwards you see sparks, flashes of lightning, trails of living light, vapor or clouds in front of your face, continue the sittings and you will become seers. If you remain perfectly calm, these clouds and sparks can mutate into forms of friends from the past. The psychic power center transforms into thought forms for your conscious mind, the annals of future Earth with which you were in contact. Exercise 1. How to predict the future. 1. Sit in the room in the dark and make a vacuum in your mind. Focus on the black void before closing your eyes to the point of ignoring the material world absolutely. 2. Write down everything that is communicated to you. Get used to writing by translating into words what you draw from the annals of the earth. 3. Do this every day for half an hour. If you cannot devote that much time to it, do it as much as possible. 4. Do not ask any questions to the vague shapes that appear in your eyes. Do not ask anything during the first 7 sessions. 5. Ask a few questions at the 8th session. 6. At first, it is preferable to be alone. Later, you can have other people with you who believe in psychic phenomena. 7. Later, ask questions about your future and write down the answers you receive. Do not accept these answers as final for a while, because they will not be accurate until your skill is perfect. But in time you will make progress until you can trust what will be revealed to you. Even if some of the interpretations of the information you receive seem fantastic at first glance, note them anyway. You will find that often what seems improbable becomes conceivable later when it comes true. If it is bad news, you can warn yourself. If it is good news, you can prepare to take advantage of it. That way you will not risk missing good opportunities. Lesson 19. How to use the secrets of psychic power domination to control others at will. How to create the atmosphere of psychic dominance with the astral cone. Mental dominance demands nothing more from psychic power than thought transmission and the use of auras. Nevertheless, the mastery of psychic power also demands the use of the astral mechanism, as will be demonstrated in the exercises that follow. Exercise 1. How to approach people who have the same ideas as you about a particular project. Sit in your room and visualize the project you want to bring to fruition. Create a large astral cone starting from your eyes. Make it curve outward in the manner of a trombone. Send a message of psychic power through your brain antennae, but let it disperse through the cone in all directions of space. Spread it out until it forms a quarter sphere from 16 to 24 kilometers in radius and contacts the receptive minds of any correspondents in this region. Everyone with a receptive mind in this region will receive your message in the form of a dream or intuition or vague recall. It is not necessary that each of these people be drawn to you. You may only need one person for one project. If you think about your project, and if you propagate it with a rush of photons, there is a good chance that the ideal partner will come to you very soon. The meeting will seem like a pure coincidence, but in fact, it will not be a coincidence at all. How to profit from the atmosphere of psychic dominance. The 3 main conditions for establishing the atmosphere of psychic dominance. 1. You desire with all your might to convert your project into reality. 2. Imagine it in detail as it becomes reality. 3. Sit calmly and project the message of psychic power through the astral cone and create an atmosphere of psychic domain for it. You can form a hemisphere with a radius of 32 to 48 kilometers, but do not go beyond that, because otherwise the atmosphere of psychic domain will lose its power of attraction. Someone within your radius will suddenly feel the need to pass a certain street, or to enter a certain store at a certain time, or to sit on a certain bench rather than another, and in this way the encounter will take place. How to advance in society and business through the pull of the astral cone. Try to imagine your message coming out of the astral cone with such an irresistible force that you have the impression that you are being pulled with it into space. Imagine the psychic power centers of dozens of people as they receive the message. Now try to bring this radiation of the message of psychic power back to you. To do this, extend your fists and forearms while keeping your eyes still at all times. Imagine people as they are torn from their homes to rush to you. Feel how they approach until they arrive at your door. If you can repeatedly recreate this atmosphere of psychic dominion for several weeks, and then go to different places in your region, you will be amazed at the number of nice people you will meet. When you are among people, in a gathering or club, it will be very helpful to spread a message of psychic power and create an atmosphere of dominion. To sum up, the atmosphere of psychic dominance brings you a whole range of advantageous circumstances. 1. The fact that you attract people receptive to your message to you through the astral cone. 2. The fact that they will extol you to their friends and acquaintances. 3. The fact that more and more customers will flow to you. 4. The fact that you have a larger bank account, more security, more happiness, confidence, and more luxury in life. In life, it is not enough to dream of big plans and hope to see them realized. One must set oneself in motion by means of the atmosphere of the psychic domain. How to use the atmosphere of the psychic domain to spontaneously attract needed information. The events you used to call coincidences are often nothing more than events elicited by the receptive communication established between you and others, by the atmosphere of psychic dominance that you unintentionally created when you focused on something you were looking for. The conscious mind then becomes so impatient to get this thing that it instinctively appeals to the psychic power center. The latter responds by creating an atmosphere of psychic power to put you in touch with the aura of someone who could help you. Exercise 1. How to get the specific knowledge you need. Sit in your room and clearly visualize a tedious problem you wish to solve. Formulate it in exact words or write it down. Then repeat the words slowly and penetratingly in your mind. Starting from the psychic power center, launch the words through the brain antennae in the form of radio waves with the astral cone. Repeat the projection to create a psychic dominion atmosphere, the size of a hemisphere, having a diameter ranging from 32 to 48 kilometers. Imagine your message reaching a dozen people and exciting their minds to give you the desired information. Then trace it back to your psychic power center and then to the conscious mind. Repeat the exercise several times, and you will be amazed to see the regularity of the answers. How to avoid the dangers that fear attracts to you. Do not be afraid of things. By trying to attract to you what you desire, you also attract what you fear, be it a person or a circumstance. The fear of something unpleasant happening to you can draw the physical, chemical, and mental forces of the harmful phenomenon or event onto you. In this way, you create mental images of what you fear and spread them around you with instinctively created astral cones. The people you fear generally dislike you and try to dominate you. By fearing them, you do not constitute a valid protection against their nefarious influences. Although they cannot consciously influence you, they practice tyrannical introspective action against you by means of radio waves. Your psychic power center continues to receive hostile attacks on a regular basis. It then automatically spreads them to the conscious and subconscious mind, and fear for this person increases. The best defense against fear is the aural helmet. How to create the aural helmet. The best defense against the dominion of another person's psychic power is the aural helmet. The aural helmet consists of a sphere around the head that prevents the radio waves of the psychic power domain from being able to influence and control you. Sit in your room and close your eyes. Imagine your aura spreading around your neck and enclosing your head as if in a helmet. Build the walls 6 inches thick so that they can effectively resist the penetrating power of other people's radio waves. The outer walls should be irregular and jagged so that radio waves hitting them will be scattered. It is very easy to fabricate the aural helmet. Train and perfect it, and you will have an invincible means of defense against others' attempts to dominate. The full strength of the aural helmet will last about 24 hours, after which it must be renewed. How to intensify the dominance of psychic power with the traveling astral body. The traveling astral body is an unsurpassed means of mastering psychic power. but you cannot use it except when you are asleep or in trance. You have to materialize yourselves. Extraordinary facts can be accomplished with the astral body. The archives are full of examples of dying people who spontaneously entered the traveling astral body and appeared to individuals thousands of miles away just before they died. Remember the times when you dreamed of falling into the void and woke up just before you hit the ground? Have you never dreamed of walking down the street in your pajamas or even naked? Such experiences are generally warped memories of travel in the astral body. What is needed to travel in the astral body? Well-trained and psychically gifted men claim that if they force themselves to appear to a person at a certain time, the astral body will do their bidding. The traveling astral body depends on an amazing control of psychic power over the astral personality, incredible power of separation between the physical body and astral body, and extraordinary visualization. These three qualities, supported by great faith in the possibility of realizing this miracle, make it possible. The slightest doubt about the possibility of realization will annihilate the faculty of execution. You will therefore need great self-confidence to realize the traveling astral body. It is well known that animals sense the presence of supernatural bodies before humans do. This is normal because their psychic power center is much more developed than that of humans. To travel in the astral body, you must awaken your psychic power center considerably. The composition of the astral body. The easiest means of learning how to order the astral body to travel is to first know what it consists of. The astral body is more commonly known as your spirit or ghost. It has the exact form of your body and remains in it all your life until death. But since it can leave the body when you are alive, it must be composed of substance released from the body. The astral body must therefore be composed of 1. Hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen, or air gases. The physical body can emit these gases in the energy left by the brain when you are in a trance state. 2. Other gases, such as chlorine. 3. Metals. It is doubtful unless they contain carbon. 4. Water, sweat. 5. Carbon dioxide. 6. Radiant heat. 7. Infrared rays. 8. Electromagnetic radiation, radio waves. 9. Heat due to the energy included in the projection of the astral body and the creation of different forms the latter can take. 10. Possibility of a different atomic or molecular action. Is this why no heat is felt, but only a cold sensation in the air when an astral body moves? 11. Mind and will of its own, but without perceptible tissue, because it cannot be injured or killed. 12. The ability to pass through solids and ether spaces. 1. A. Either because its molecules are infinitely small and 2. B. Whether it generates its own heat by itself because it is not cold like ice, but like mist. Conclusions. Since the astral body penetrates the more compact solid, it must be 1. A gas, plus 2. B. An electromagnetic radiation, and it must be 3. C. Absolutely controlled by a will or mind. 4. D. But this mind may or may not be that of a human being. Is it the subconscious mind, or the primitive self-consciousness? It is certainly neither once the body is gone. Also, the astral body. 1. E. Can be converted to joint and several at will. 2. F. Can be converted back to gas at will. 3. G. Can change form and substance at will. 4. H. In the psychic state of possession, it can also replace the astral body of the injured victim and impose its will on him. The three qualities needed to make the astral body travel. 1. Quality. The dying man seldom possesses superhuman psychic energy, but he is capable of anything in order to make contact with the beings dear to him for the last time, and he frantically draws to himself the electrons he needs for a miraculous projection of psychic power. In reality, cases have been recorded in which the dying person had appeared at the same time to relatives distant from each other. Such manifestations truly demand superhuman psychic power, but the dying person practically loses all reason in the frantic effort to bid his or her parents a final farewell. Therefore, until the supreme moment, no one would suspect in him such remarkable psychic powers. At the threshold of death, the primitive self-consciousness finally awakens. When you order the astral body to travel, do not just say, "Astral body, I order you to appear before John or Joan this evening at 11 o'clock. Any order of psychic power is most effective when it is supported by a mental image of what you want to achieve with words. Then do the following exercise. Exercise. To command the astral body to travel with a psychic power command, lie quietly on the bed and close your eyes to concentrate better. Imagine that the astral body completely fills every part of your body. Now launch a rocket command to the astral body, ordering it to depart through space to make an appearance to John or Mary. Repeat the exercise several times until you feel the astral body become alive in your body, like successive waves of a power ready to burst at the first signal. 2. Quality. Now create, with your aura, a giant suction cup 2 m in diameter. Hold this oral suction cup above your body and make it begin to suck in air furiously. Lie still and motionless and imagine it ripping all the mass of the astral body out of the physical body. This will cause all the hairs of your horn to straighten. Double this tension by throwing a psychic harpoon into the astral body that is outside of you. 3. Quality. Once you have separated the astral body from the physical body, disintegrate the giant oral sucker. Order the psychic power center to observe everything, and not to forget anything the astral body sees and does on the journey. Send a rocket command to the astral body telling it where to go and what to do. Now visualize the astral body free of the physical body as it penetrates space and appears to the designated person. If this person expects to see you, order the astral body to materialize under a human form. Order it to make itself visible and visualize this change. On the astral plane, these actions are performed in a fantastic manner. The mysterious molecules of this plane are sensitive to thought beyond any human conception. Practice astral body projection calmly without setting time limits for the completion of the experience. The dying, you already know, do it instantaneously. You too can do it, but you will need time to achieve remarkable results. How to project customized astral thought forms. If you do not have the time to apply astral body projection, you can use customized astral thought forms more easily and get amazing results. First of all, you have to concentrate so intensely on another person that your thoughts can take shape spontaneously before him or her as an appearance of yourself. Although this maintains a subtle astral thread of connection with you, there will be no conscious connection with you, and you will consequently have no communication. Nevertheless, you can project personalized astral thought forms. Learn how to create them and make use of them with the following exercise. Exercise. Sit and lie quietly in your room and think of a particular person. Create an image in your mind that is so vivid so that it seems real. Visualize it from head to toe, in every detail. Observe her as she applies herself to what you think she does. To construct a fairly accurate picture of her activity, cast out of your mind all prejudice against her. When you have an impartial and loyal attitude toward her, your psychic power center acquires the appropriate receptivity for her. Her will then easily respond to any psychic communication of yours and practically invite you to appear in person before her. The destined person will now suddenly become aware that you intensely occupy his or her thoughts and will begin to actively think about you in his or her conscious mind. It is time to send her your psychic power message that reaches her psychic power center and is spread to her mind. Her mind sends the response to your personalized astral thought form, and then it is spread to your mind. This exercise will multiply the faculty of concentration, of getting in touch with others and grabbing their attention. Lesson 20. How to master the physio-astral world and gain miraculous power. How to create the magical image that others can see through provoked vision. For centuries and centuries, East Indians have confused foreigners with their faculties of provoked vision. This faculty results from the creation of thought forms and is so authentic that the people present actually see them and accept them as such. Indian fakirs have developed this faculty to such an extent that they can show travelers distant mountains walking and moving at their command. At our place there are actors who can look into the void and see scenes, and induce the same audience to see them without uttering a word. How does this occur? This is accomplished because the optic nerve contains fine command distribution fibers that run from the great visual center to the retina. These fibers can be used to transport images created in the conscious mind to the retina by guiding them with a command from the intensive psychic power in the retina. These images are converted into radio waves. You can then direct them into the horns of the other person's brain so that they reproduce the image you conceived in the conscious mind. This creates the magic image that you can see and accept as true an image. To achieve this, you have to very accurately reproduce the structures you visualize in the thought forms so that you can produce an authentic image in the great visual center. Otherwise, you will not be able to transfer a convincing image to the other person's retina. This is the vision provoked by the Indian fakir. Learn how to use it. Exercise in making others see what you want them to see. Exercise 1. Look at a garden or meadow, but imagine that you see a stream. With the help of a psychic power command, direct the image of the stream formed in the great visual center to the retina, where it is converted into radio waves. With a phenomenal launch of photons, conduct these radio waves into the garden or onto the lawn in front of you until it seems to you that the stream suddenly floods the garden. For this to have substance, imagine the stream in all details, with the reflections of the sun and the sound of the water. Although you see the stream well now, you probably see the garden as well. To make the garden disappear completely, throw 2 or 3 intensified commands of psychic power at it. Then the garden will be covered by the stream. If you now tell the viewer that he is seeing a stream, he will see it instead of the garden. Exercise 2. Throw a stick to the ground and imagine it turning into a snake. With a command from the psychic power, bring this image into the great visual center, through the subtle command distribution fibers of the optic nerve to the retina. The image is converted into radio waves, which you direct onto the staff, turning it into a snake. As the image of the snake erases that of the stick, you see the reptile moving slowly. Thus, although the stick always remains a stick, your visualization force transforms it into the snake so that, through provoked vision, the observer sees exactly what you yourself visualize. To facilitate the success of the experiment, you can verbally describe to the observer what you see. Here is the snake that is black and shiny like coal. Look at the scales, how small and regular they are. Now it moves, raises its head and shows its tongue. There it goes. He's leaving. Exercise 3. Repeat exercise to using other objects or animals. Describe them vividly, first orally and then silently. In this way, create the magical image with provoked vision. Describe the scene point by point, just as if it were happening before your eyes. Exercise 4. Do exercise 3 again, but do not describe what you see. Just look at the scene as if it were an authentic river or snake. The viewer will see what you see through thought transmission, telepathy. Exercise 5. Repeat exercise 4 by visualizing other objects or animals. Abstract. You can use the provoked vision for more practical purposes. It will help you greatly in society, business, commerce, and love. How to use the astral body for telekinesthesia. Telekinesthesia is the movement of material objects caused by a person without any physical contact. This means, simply put, moving objects without touching them. Many psychic phenomena are falsely attributed to spirits. Moving material objects without touching them is not an accurate expression, however, because it implies that you do not touch them at all. Instead, you astrally touch them. Spirits evidently can be summoned to move objects and perform other phenomena. In the houses inhabited by ghosts, they do so spontaneously. But do not confuse the performance of a spirit with that of an astral body. Exercise to learn how to use the astral arm to move objects. Exercise 1. Sit quietly in your room in a comfortable chair. Observe an object that you would like to move, such as a brush. Create an astral suction cup a little longer than your arm and place it against your arm. Remain still and let the suction cup furiously draw air to itself. Imagine it pulling the astral arm away from the physical arm with physio-astral separation. The hairs on the arm will also straighten. Start the exercise again several times for 3 days in a row. Exercise 2. When the astral arm is completely sucked out of the physical arm, immediately disintegrate the astral sucker to leave the way clear. Then discharge a rocket command of psychic power to the astral arm, commanding it to stretch out until it touches the brush. The astral arm will hesitate, but you reinforce the command with more rockets. Exercise 3. This time engage with the irradiating psychic arc to keep the sympathetic nerves under control. Then begin exercise 2 again. Now insist on the rocket command launching of the psychic power until you can raise the astral arm to shoulder height. Having reached this point, you have already achieved good results. Exercise 4. Send a command flare of psychic power to the astral arm, commanding it to reach up to the brush by stretching as when pulling chewing gum from both ends. Although the stretching does not cause the astral arm, which has no nerves, to suffer, the conscious mind, because of a visual suggestion, will feel terrible pain, as if the physical arm were being tortured. This pain causes the astral arm to retract into the physical arm. Then intensify the irradiating psychic arc and begin the exercise again. In a short time, the inhibitions of the mind will be eradicated. Exercise 5. Henceforth, progress will be rapid. Command the astral arm with psychic power. Visualize it as it stretches further and further into the chamber and becomes thinner and thinner. Finally, it will reach the brush. Exercise 6. Touch the brush with the astral arm. Discharge photons from the brain antennae and its fingers will become alive and mobile. The astral arm will feel stronger than the physical arm since it is under absolute control of the psychic power center, just as the physical arm is when you are hypnotized. Exercise 7. Take the brush with the fingers of the astral arm and lift it up. The fingers will look like spider legs, but will be as strong as the psychic power center can make them. Perform this exercise to develop the faculty of the astral body to make the table and other mediumistic things move. You will also gain the faculty to make others feel your physical presence without touching or approaching them. How to use the power of materialization. Materialization is another higher physio-astral faculty. It is not easy to master because it is not fostered by the disbelief of the conscious and subconscious mind. Mediums regularly attain it when they are in a trance state. Psychic masters achieve it by astral body projection. The projection of the astral body can take any form you wish. You only have to visualize the desired form with conviction when the astral body is separated from the physical body, and send a command to it to reproduce the visualization. Exercise 1. Sit in your room and lie down completely. Reach for the brush with your astral arm, but do not pick it up. With a command of psychic power, visualize a normal hand reaching for and lifting the brush. Observe the hairs on the back of the living hand, wrinkled skin, nails, and wrist. Visualize a living hand, separated from the arm, but connected to it by a long hazy cord the size of a finger. Pick up the brush with this hand, move it in the air and put it back. Then let the hand dissolve back into its astral form. This is the materialization. Exercise 2. Do exercise 1 again, but this time direct a psychic power command to the astral arm to mutate it into a full human arm. Then take the brush and move it through the air with this arm. Exercise 3. Sit in your room looking at the ground and project a massive astral body out of you. Let it bunch up in the center of the room and send it a command of psychic power to give it the shape of a large brown and white dog. Send another command for the dog to move its tail and bark. It will look like a real dog, and if someone touches it, its fur will look like that of a dog. But his mind will be yours. Send a command for him to speak and repeat your words with your voice. It has no personal instincts, only your psychic power center to guide it, even if the actions are those of a dog. Repeat this exercise several times. Exercise 4. Materialize furniture and other inanimate objects with the same system. The miracles you can accomplish with tri-conscious cooperation. If you have been successful with these materialization processes, you will have consumed a considerable amount of electrons. But your competence increases with practice until you can materialize a series of scenes at a time within a few minutes. The materializations consist of ectoplasms, that is, of astral body substances. If a sword were sunk into the materialized hand or dog, no blood would come out. And if the hand or dog moved, they could pass through a wall. You can reproduce any form, living or dead, with ectoplasm. You can even turn the dog into a horse or an eagle if the psychic power command is strong enough. The animal will do exactly what your mind commands it to do. You will be able to visualize and reproduce in this way an entire regiment, a funeral procession, or a mountain of money before people's eyes. It all depends on the cooperation you can get from the conscious and subconscious mind and the primal self. Everything then depends on the degree of perfection of tri-conscious cooperation. How to realize levitation. Needless to say, the most mind-blowing thing you can do is levitation, especially if you lift your body. Practically everyone knows the experience of the yoga master taking a siesta in space at a height of 1.20 meters. Think of the influence you might have on a person who has seen you do such a thing. But only a psychic master can come to that. On the other hand, knowing how this happens will increase your psychic power and thus your power to master psychic power. Levitation. During thousands of years, man has tried to explain the phenomenon of levitation. In spiritualism, this can be accomplished by lifting the physical body into the air by projections of astral body limbs onto the ground. Many psychic masters, however, raise themselves without making use of their astral body. Here is what happens. When you walk on the ground, the feet have a magnetic polarity N, opposite to that of the earth, S, while the head, which in this position has a magnetic polarity S opposite to that of the feet N, has the same as that of the earth S. If you can reverse the magnetic polarity of the body so that the feet have the polarity of the earth S and the head, the polarity opposite to the earth N, the body will stand in reverse according to the law of like repelling like and opposites attracting like. Similarly, when you are lying on your back, the back draws a magnetic polarity opposite to that of the earth, while the front of the body draws the same as that of the earth. When you are lying on your belly, the front of the body takes a magnetic polarity opposite to that of the earth, while the back takes the same as that of the earth. If the whole body could voluntarily assume a magnetic polarity like that of the earth, he would be repelled by it. At that moment, levitation could be magnetic repulsion. The body and the earth repel each other. To perform levitation, therefore, the psychic master needs his body to have the same polarity as the earth, and the earth will repel him. This is opposite magnetization. Analyze the two ways of performing levitation. How to realize levitation with the astral body. Lie down on the bed. Think of yourself suspended in the air, but supported by extensions of the body that is on the ground. Now cease your vision. You have visualized the image you want your primal self to realize. Now you are ready to begin. Imagine yourself on your back with extra arms and legs pushing your body into the air. Repeat this exercise until you feel your astral limbs projecting out of the physical limbs and pushing the physical body into the air above the ground. The magnetic polar repulsion existing between humans. The easiest way to achieve levitation with inverted magnetism is by starting with the horizontal position, because in this position there is more of the body in contact with the earth. Reversing the magnetic polarity of the body and concentrating it to a point that can be repelled from the earth is not easy to do. Only a psychic master can realize it to learn how to implement it, even in a small way. Flipping the magnetic polarity, however, can be very useful to you just the same. When you meet someone, you both possess the same magnetic polarity, which means there is a natural magnetic repulsion between human beings. Therefore, learn how to nullify this inevitable magnetic repulsion between you and others with flipped magnetization. The easiest and simplest way to reverse the magnetic polarity of the body when you want to attract someone to you is to feel a great desire to get to know this person, to be his or her friend, and to help him or her as much as you can, if the individual does not trust you. Conversely, remain in a waiting position if the individual is interested in you. If John has a magnetic polarity similar to yours, if you feel the same for him, yours will also intensify and cause mutual repulsion. But if you instantly reverse your magnetic polarity, the surfaces of your bodies will then be attracted rather than repelled. How to flip the magnetic polarity. Exercise 1. Lie down on the bed. Your back and the bed do not possess the same magnetic polarity, and therefore do not repel each other. To acquire a bed-like magnetic polarity, your back should have the impression that it wants to lie on the bed. So simply think that the back loves to lie on the bed. Feel happy and relaxed, and you will fall asleep quickly. You now know why the psychic master falls into a trance of sleep before his body remains suspended in the void. Do not expect miraculous results from this exercise. It will improve health by providing you with deep sleep and better rest for the next day. How to keep the primitive self-conscious always awake. You have studied practically and acquired at least 1% development of your unconscious personality by awakening the primitive self. Learn how to keep it awake permanently with the psychic pattern. The psychic model. The psychic model is the quick means of placing the primitive self-consciousness under the control of its 10 important parts and freeing it from the influence of the mind. To achieve this, 2 conditions must occur. 1. Submitting alpha, beta, delta, and theta waves. 2. Placing hearing under the control of cochlea electricity instead of true auditory electricity. Explanation. The first condition places the psychic power center in control of the conscious and subconscious mind, which already occurs during sleep. The second condition places the center of psychic auditory power in control of the hearing and auditory centers. Realize these 2 conditions while awake, and you can always awaken the primitive self-consciousness. How to create the psychic model. To realize the psychic model. 1. Put you in a kind of light trance. 2. Command the psychic power center to take control of you. 1. The easy means to put yourself in a kind of light trance is to A. Stretch the muscles from head to toe. Stretch the eyebrows, hands, feet, jaw. The rest will come reflexively. B. Close your eyes and look into the void, thinking of nothing. If the eyes are closed, look at the blackness behind the pupils. 2. Launch a command from the conscious mind to the psychic power center for it to take control of your body. A. Silently count to 4 to allow time for the center to take over. This is the psychic pattern. Do this once a week simply to preserve the fantastic potential of the primitive self-consciousness. How to be a new I for the rest of life. You have finished Cyclomancy. You have awakened the primitive self-consciousness, and therefore you will not be prisoners of the conscious mind, but masters of your hidden powers, which will increase more and more, and which you can use to reach unhoped-for goals. With your new self, you will reach everywhere. Progressive method of using the new I. Here is how to use the new I in current life. Morning. As soon as you get up, sit by the window and do some breathing exercises to fill yourself with electrons. Then saturate yourself with the radiant psychic arc to better digest breakfast. As you leave the house, use muscle tone control to assume gracefulness of movement and gait. On the street, meet a neighbor and make him or her amiable by using flipped magnetization and electrifying handshake. To attract more customers in trade, create the atmosphere of psychic dominance. To get along with your wife or girlfriend, cast hints or calls with the psychic bow. Afternoon. Regain strength with the crossed zembla. With the psychic spear, force a person who ignores you to feel a keen interest in you. If you have rivals, protect yourself from their insidious thoughts by means of the oral helmet. If your occupation demands fine hearing, increase the sensitivity of cochlea electricity. Evening. Refresh yourself with the horizontal ozone. If you study or read, do so with the help of the primitive vision center. If you visit a sick friend, raise his spirits with light touch. When you go to bed, do zembla to delay aging. Stimulate your spouse with the human lamp. Fall deeply asleep with the help of the irradiant psychic arc. Read Cyclomancy again starting afresh, and you will profit so much that you will multiply the primal self-consciousness. Then regularly consult the passages concerning the parts of your personality that you want to better develop and do the corresponding exercises. This recording of Cyclomancy, The Secret of Psychic Power Control by Frank Rudolph Young, was presented by Stargate Book. Sound recording copyright 2023 and produced by DeepSend Limited 2023.